Chapter 467. Chapter 467, Pinliang's New Plan, You. What are you doing? Xiao Xiao jumped, not expecting Lin Yi to be so bold as to hold her hand. She wanted to move away subconsciously, but she didn't manage to. Lin Yi didn't say anything. He put something in Xiao Xiao's hand and left. A bracelet? Xiao Xiao looked at the thing Lin Yi put down, speechless. She'd been looking for it for so long, and Lin Yi just casually touched the water and found it? Xiao Xiao looked at Lin Yi's back in disbelief, her eyes filled with disbelief. She didn't understand Lin Yi at all. Lin Yi wasn't a treasure hunter or anything. How would he be able to find the bracelet Xiao Xiao threw into the water under normal circumstances? Lin Yi was just using Xiao Xiao's faint hostility towards him, and through the jade's sensing ability, he found something with Xiao Xiao's presence in the sea. It was just a normal function of the jade, and Lin Yi often used it in the battlefield to find out what his enemies were hiding. Of course, this function only worked on people who were hostile to him. It didn't work on anyone else. The spring outing ended peacefully with Pinliang's farce. In the evening, the students in the class took the seaplane back to Songshan City. Pinliang's face was pale as he sat next to Xiaofu. The two didn't try to sit in the last row anymore, instead choosing to sit behind everyone else in the middle of the cabin. The spring outing was a perfect plan, and now it's ruined. Pinliang realized that everything was going wrong. No matter what he did, it always ended in failure. If this went on, he might even think that he was possessed by the god of misfortune. Liang bro, I'm sorry, I didn't warn you in time when that shark came. Xiaofu said, a little guilty. It's fine, I was too impatient. Pinliang waved his hand. I'm afraid Mingyao's impression of me is even worse now. She thinks I'm a coward, trying to lure danger to a woman. I'm done for, there's no hope left. Brother Liang, don't give up. There's still hope. Xiaofu tried to calm Pinliang down. In fact, even he himself thought that Pinliang's chances were slim. Really? Is there still hope? Pinliang was like a drowning man clutching at the last straw. He knew it was hopeless, but he didn't want to give up. Yes. Gao Xiaofu hesitated for a moment before saying, Brother Liang, I think you should force yourself on her. Force yourself on me? Pinliang paused, looking at Xiaofu in shock. You're saying, that's right. Gao Xiaofu was just saying it casually, but after saying it, even he felt that it was a good idea, so he continued, Brother Liang, it's already April, and there are only 2 months left before the college entrance examination. Time is tight, and if you don't hurry up, I'm afraid that your chances will be even slimmer after you enter university. What if Meng Yao finds someone else after she goes to university? Yeah, you're right. Pinliang nodded, but isn't it too risky to force yourself on her? Meng Yao's family isn't normal, and I'm afraid that it'll backfire. Pinliang had given Ruoming a similar idea before, telling him to force himself on Tang Yun, but that was only for girls with no background. Meng Yao, on the other hand, was different. Peng Zhan wouldn't let him off the hook if he really did force himself on Meng Yao. That's not true. Xiaofu waved his hand mysteriously. Think about it, Liang bro. What do the people in the upper class care about the most? Its reputation, and if Meng Yao really becomes yours, would she dare to sue you? Even if she wanted to, Peng Zhan might not agree to it. This is related to his daughter's reputation for life. If this gets out, how is Meng Yao going to get married? That's true, but how can I guarantee that Peng Zhan won't do something to me in the dark? Pinliang hesitated, still worried. Isn't that easy? First, Meng Yao's already yours, and I don't believe that she won't care about all this. As long as she cares, you can take advantage of the situation and break through her mental defenses. Xiaofu said confidently. Secondly, Liang bro, you have to go to Peng Zhan's company and spread the word that Meng Yao's already yours, that you're his son-in-law. Let everyone know about this, and Peng Zhan won't be able to do anything to you even if he wants to, since everyone knows about this. He'll have to acknowledge you as his son-in-law to avoid being laughed at. Xiaofu said confidently. I say, Xiaofu, you're pretty good, aren't you? Pinliang listened to Xiaofu's analysis and felt that it was true. It was a great idea if he did it right. Of course, Liang bro, you can do this if you're really afraid of something happening. Xiaofu was getting more and more excited. Lock Mengyao up first, then go to Pengzhan's place and say that Mengyao's already yours. See how he reacts. If he acknowledges you as his son-in-law, then go back and cook the rice. If he doesn't, then let Mengyao go and tell him that it's just a joke. That way, the risk will be much lower. Xiaofu, I really didn't realize that you're so smart. Pinliang was a little worried before, but calmed down after hearing Xiaofu's instructions. There was no risk at all. Heh, it's all thanks to your training, Liang bro. Xiaofu smiled, pleased with himself. Man, this thing down there got kicked by Xiao, and it's all swollen now. Looks like I won't be able to use it anytime soon. I can't force myself on her either. Pinliang said, a little regretful. Xiao gripped the bracelet in her hand tightly. She needed to reevaluate Lin Yi's strength. She'd underestimated Lin Yi too much before, resulting in her losing time and time again. It seemed that making Lin Yi fall in love with her wasn't an easy task. Lin Yi had saved her today, but Xiao could tell that Lin Yi didn't save her because he liked her at all. It was out of pity. And so, Xiao felt that she needed to adjust her plan a little. If she kept chasing Lin Yi like this, Lin Yi would never like her for the rest of his life. It seemed that she had to do something. Chapter 468. Chapter 468, Xiao's confession. No. He'd saved her, but how could she let go of the humiliation she'd suffered? Absolutely not. She was Xiao. When had she ever been so irresolute? She'd already made up her mind to make him pay, so she'd keep her word. It was Monday morning, and Lin Yi brought the freshly made shark fins to Mr. Tang. It wasn't much of a delicacy for Mengyao and Yushu, after all. Mr. Tang, naturally, was very happy. He couldn't stop smiling when he saw the shark fins Lin Yi had brought. Mrs. Tang, on the other hand, was happy as well. Lin Yi's appearance had changed the family for the better. Lin Yi, I've thought about it, and I've decided to buy a retail store after the relocation. It might cost a bit more, but it'll be enough to open a barbecue shop. Mrs. Tang said. This was the decision she'd made after hearing from Tang Yun that Lin Yi wanted her to open a shop. That's a good thing. Lin Yi nodded. With a shop in front and a home behind, we don't have to worry about a place to live. Yeah. Mrs. Tang paused for a moment before continuing, but I might not be able to return the money I borrowed from you so soon. We've made some money these days, and with the money from old Tang's surgery, it should be enough to pay for the store. Mrs. Tang knew that Tang Yun wouldn't be able to say it herself, so she might as well say it herself. Even if Lin Yi rejected her, it didn't matter. She'd be the one losing face anyway. You don't have to return that money. Lin Yi smiled. Let me know if it's not enough. It's enough. Mrs. Tang said with a smile after hearing Lin Yi's words. Old Tang, I told you Lin Yi would be fine. That's good. Tang Juqing let out a breath of relief. He was indeed worried. Lin Yi and Tang Yun were friends, but they were only boyfriend and girlfriend. They weren't engaged or married, so Tang Juqing didn't feel comfortable owing Lin Yi so much money. Mom, why are you all so greedy? Tang Yun wasn't very happy. Although she didn't feel that way about Lin Yi giving money to her family anymore, she still felt that she owed it to Lin Yi. If his parents couldn't pay back the money, it would still fall on him in the end. What if he couldn't pay back the money? How was he supposed to return it? This child, what do you mean by greedy? Isn't it difficult at home? Mrs. Tang glared at her daughter, thinking, you really don't know how to use your resources. Lin Yi is so generous, can't you just ask for more? At that time, he would also buy a bigger retail store at home and even buy the first and second floors. Tang Yun pouted and lowered her head. She couldn't win against her mother in an argument, and even if she did, her mother might say something embarrassing. So, Tang Yun decided to keep quiet. All right, Uncle Tang, Auntie Tang, I'm going to school with Tang Yun. Lin Yi smiled as he smoothed things over. Okay, it's about time, you guys go. Mrs. Tang smiled as she sent Tang Yun and Lin Yi to the door. When Lin Yi left, he gave Mrs. Tang a bank card. Mrs. Tang paused for a second, then put it into her pocket with a smile. She knew that Lin Yi gave it to her, and he did it behind Tang Yun's back, which meant that the money was free and not borrowed. There wasn't any evidence, and Tang Yun didn't see it. Other than giving Mr. Tang shark fin, Lin Yi also came to give Mrs. Tang this card. He wanted Mrs. Tang to open up the barbecue shop as soon as possible, reducing Tang Yun's burden. What did you just give my mom? Tang Yun's eyes were sharp, and she noticed something. It's nothing. Lin Yi smiled. Did you secretly give her money? Tang Yun wasn't stupid, and she could roughly guess what he was doing. No, a small accessory, Lin Yi said casually. Oh. Tang Yun let out a breath of relief. She was afraid that she owed Lin Yi too much, and she wouldn't be able to pay it back in the future. Lin Yi drove Tang Yun to school and parked the car at the food street. Xiao Xiao's Audi TT followed them and stopped beside Lin Yi's car. Xiao Xiao took over another stall on the food street, and the vendors didn't dare say anything, because Xiao Xiao and Lin Yi knew each other. Who would want to mess with her? Honey. Xiao Xiao stopped the car and waved at Lin Yi. Wah. Lin Yi's eyes went wide as he looked at Xiao Xiao, confused. Was there something wrong with this girl? Calling him honey? Tang Yun's face darkened as she looked at Xiao Xiao strangely. Xiao Xiao had already shown that she was too close to Lin Yi in the cafeteria, and that made Tang Yun uncomfortable. Now she was calling Lin Yi honey right in front of her? What did she think she was? Lin Yi, didn't you say you were going to talk to her? Xiao Xiao ran over and grabbed Lin Yi's arm. You liar. You told me yesterday that you were going to give her a breakup fee and break up with her. Why are you still with her? Xiao Xiao, what's wrong with you? Lin Yi was about to explode at Xiao Xiao's weird words. Lin Yi, I think I'm pregnant. Can you take me to the hospital for a checkup? Xiao Xiao didn't answer Lin Yi's question. Tang Yun frowned as she looked at Xiao Xiao. From what she knew of Lin Yi, she didn't believe Xiao Xiao's words, but anyone would be suspicious if they heard something like this. What's going on? Didn't Lin Yi give you a breakup fee? Xiao Xiao looked at Tang Yun, confused. I've known Lin Yi for a long time, and I wanted to make you a mistress out of pity, sharing Lin Yi with you, but you didn't know what was good for you, so I had to make Lin Yi be with you for nothing. Tang Yun paused. She didn't really believe Xiao Xiao's words, but Xiao Xiao said it so confidently that Tang Yun couldn't help but be suspicious. One had to know that reputation was very important to a girl, and Xiao Xiao didn't even have a boyfriend. Why would she throw dirty water on herself and say something like that? Seeing that all the students were looking at them, Tang Yun felt her face heat up. Xiao Xiao's words were obviously meant to embarrass her, and even if she was lying, Tang Yun still felt uncomfortable. Did this make the students think that she was trying to steal her man? Tang Yun never thought that she would become the main character of a love triangle. Lin Yi, talk to her first. I'm leaving, come find me after class. Tang Yun didn't want to see the weird looks people were giving her, so she said to Lin Yi and quickly walked back to school. Lin Yi, on the other hand, looked at Xiao Xiao with a dark face. What do you want? Chapter 469. Chapter 469. Something happened to Fin. Xiao Xiao decided to take the initiative and cause some trouble for Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked at Xiao Xiao, confused. A hero saving a damsel in distress was the most vulgar part of the story, but it was also something that could easily move a man's heart. But Lin Yi didn't think that yesterday's scene could move Xiao Xiao that much. He'd saved Tang Yun a couple of times already, and she didn't even want to marry him. Their relationship was only formed after spending a long time together. The miss, on the other hand, didn't need to be mentioned. He'd saved her many times, and she never expressed anything. As a result, Lin Yi didn't think that saving a damsel in distress would make Xiao Xiao confess to him on her own accord. Lin Yi, you're the most charming man I've ever met. Xiao Xiao blushed as she looked at Lin Yi, her eyes blurry. But, before Lin Yi could say anything, the phone rang. It was Lin Yi. Sorry, I'll take this call first. Lin Yi made a hand gesture to Xiao Xiao before picking up the call. Xiao Xiao was furious. She'd never been so humble to a man before. She was Xiao Xiao. She'd sworn that in her short life, she'd never lower her head to anyone. She'd live a life of her own free will. But now, Lin Yi was picking up the phone when she'd finally gotten the courage to confess to him. She couldn't take it anymore. She raised her foot, aiming to step on Lin Yi's foot. Lin Yi thought to himself. Why did girls always like to step on other people's feet? He subconsciously moved back, and Xiao Xiao stepped on empty air. She'd used too much force, and with a crack, her high heel broke. Ah! Xiao Xiao was panicking. She glared at Lin Yi. Step on it. Or I won't let you answer the phone. As he spoke, he tried to snatch the phone from Lin Yi's hand. Lin Yi frowned, thinking that Xiao Xiao was messing around a little, but seeing how furious she was, Lin Yi decided to let her be. He stretched out his leg and picked up the phone. Hello? I stomp. I stomp. I stomp, stomp, stomp. Xiao Xiao stomped on Lin Yi's foot, but the pain was nothing to Lin Yi. Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, was having a hard time with her giggling. Boss, Xiaofan was caught. Just when Lin Yi picked up the phone, Kang Xiaobo's panicked voice came from the other side. Xiaofan was caught. What's going on? Lin Yi paused and ignored Xiao Xiao, frowning as he listened to the phone. Boss, it's like this. I woke up this morning and went to Xiaofan's house to have breakfast with her. Kang Xiaobo said, a little embarrassed. I wake up early every morning, yeah, get to the point. Who caught Xiaofan? Lin Yi understood Kang Xiaobo's modus operandi. Men and women in love were always passionate, so Lin Yi wouldn't stop Kang Xiaobo from working hard every morning. After all, didn't he still go to Tang Yun's place early in the morning? This morning, Xiaofan was waiting for me on the bench near the breakfast stall like usual. But I usually get there first, but there was a traffic jam this morning, so I got there a little late. Kang Xiaobo said. When I got out of the car, I saw Xiaofan being caught by two men into a white van without a license plate. I was shocked and quickly called a taxi to follow them. I followed them to the entrance of a compound, but the taxi driver only stopped nearby and didn't dare to go in. Hearing Kang Xiaobo's words, Lin Yi sighed. He couldn't understand why these people caught Xiaofan. Could it be that they were sent by Kang Mingming? Where are you? I'll go right now. Lin Yi asked. There's a road sign here, it says Dunmeng Street sub 7, but there doesn't seem to be anyone passing by, so it should be the suburbs, Kang Xiaobo said. I spent around 300 yuan on the taxi, so it should be the suburbs far away. Okay, don't do anything rash. Wait for me. Lin Yi said. Keep in touch. Okay, boss. Hurry up. I'm afraid they'll do something bad to Xiaofan if I'm late. Kang Xiaobo said. Don't worry. I'm here. Nothing will happen, Lin Yi said. After hanging up the call with Kang Xiaobo, Lin Yi ignored Xiao Xiao and turned to get in the car. But he saw Xiao Xiao's Audi TT. Lin Yi hesitated. Lend me your car. In terms of speed, there was no way his van could catch up to Xiao Xiao's sports car. After all, there was the engine. Even if he stepped on the gas pedal, the car couldn't turn into a plane. The place Kang Xiaobo mentioned was a place Lin Yi had never heard of, and since Kang Xiaobo spent 300 yuan on the taxi, excluding the possibility of the car taking a detour, it was more than 100 kilometers away. It wasn't close at all. Ah. Xiao Xiao blinked. Why did he only think of her when he wanted to borrow the car? Why did he ignore her before? Xiao Xiao humphed. I can borrow the car, but I have to be in the car. Follow if you're not afraid of danger. Lin Yi didn't have time to bullshit with Xiao Xiao. The situation wasn't clear right now, and 1 minute late meant 1 minute more danger. Lin Yi didn't want to waste time trying to convince Xiao Xiao. I'm not. Xiao Xiao nodded. The more dangerous and exciting it is, the more I like it. You're quite special, no wonder you like racing. Lin Yi shook his head. Give me the keys. Xiao Xiao obediently took out the keys, but didn't give them to Lin Yi. Instead, she unlocked the door. I'll give it to you in the car. What if you leave me behind? Ha. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. I don't lie to my friends. You think I'm your friend? Xiao Xiao was a little excited at Lin Yi's words. Just a normal friend. Neither good nor bad. Lin Yi was being truthful. He didn't have any bad feelings towards Xiao Xiao, nor did he have any good feelings towards her. In his eyes, she was just a spoiled girl who liked to cause trouble. Why would he bother with her? Carry me, or else we'll waste time. One of Xiao Xiao's shoes was broken, so she couldn't walk fast. Lin Yi looked at her and casually picked her up with one arm, placing her in the passenger seat. Xiao Xiao was a little shocked. She didn't know that Lin Yi's body was this strong. He could carry her with one arm? Lin Yi got in the car and took the keys from Xiao Xiao. He started the car and said to her, navigate to Dunmeng Street, number 7. Chapter 470. Chapter 470, Private Territory. Is it okay to run a red light? Lin Yi asked. This was Xiao Xiao's car, after all. It's fine. Xiao Xiao, naturally, didn't care about the fine. Lin Yi nodded. Sit tight and fasten your seatbelt. Xiao Xiao didn't think much of Lin Yi telling her to fasten her seatbelt in the city, but the next moment, she realized that it was a good thing she did. She'd been driving for a long time, but she'd never seen an Audi TT this performance. It made her feel like she'd wasted her time on it. In the city, Lin Yi took every chance he got, not only ignoring the red lights, but even ignoring the traffic police signaling for him to stop. That's amazing. Xiao Xiao was excited. Why can't I be this amazing? Even the traffic police can't stop you. I'm going to save someone, you're just racing for the thrill. It's different, Lin Yi said faintly as he glanced at the rearview mirror. There were 2 police cars behind them. Lin Yi was a bit speechless, but thinking about it, his actions were no different from racing. It was normal to get police cars. Whoa, there's police cars behind us. Lin Yi, we have to lose them. Xiao Xiao wasn't scared at all, but excited instead. I've only seen something like this in Need for Speed. Lin Yi rolled his eyes. He'd guessed that Xiao Xiao's background wasn't normal. She'd been able to go from high school to high school, so she must have a lot of power behind her. It was understandable that Xiao Xiao didn't care about being chased by police cars. But Lin Yi didn't want any trouble. His first goal was to save someone, not deal with police cars. What's your license plate? Song AFX 520. What's wrong? Xiao Xiao asked subconsciously. FX 520. Lin Yi thought to himself. That plate was pretty special. Feng Xiao, I love you. But this also proved that Xiao Xiao's family wasn't simple at all, being able to get a plate like this. This was much harder to get than a plate with 3 8s or 3 6s. But Lin Yi didn't say much and took out his phone to call Ling Shan. Ling Shan hadn't been home for a couple of days now. She was in the police force, organizing the experts to analyze the organ trafficking case. Seeing Lin Yi's phone call, he thought that Lin Yi had some clues, so he quickly picked it up. Miss Braindead, my car plate is Song AFX 520, there's a police car chasing after me, tell them to stop. Lin Yi hung up before Ling Shan could reply. Ah. Ling Shan stared blankly at the phone, her face filled with anger. This Lin Yi. How dare he order him to do things? The next time I see him, I must beat him until his face is full of bumps. Ling Shan wasn't happy, but she didn't want to piss Lin Yi off. She called the traffic police, telling them that the AFX 520 was on duty and telling them to stop chasing. As expected, not long after Lin Yi made the call, the police cars behind them disappeared, and when they passed by the traffic police station, there were no more traffic police to stop them. Lin Yi, you're too amazing, aren't you? You did it with one phone call? Xiao Xiao's eyes widened in shock. She had some background, but even she couldn't make all the traffic police ignore her with one phone call. I'm in a hurry to save someone, Lin Yi said faintly. Don't put me in the same category as a spoiled brat like you. Hee hee, no matter what, you're still very handsome. Xiao Xiao waved her fist excitedly. Right, who's Miss Braindead? A friend of mine, Lin Yi said. Then why is she called Miss Braindead? Is she retarded? Xiao Xiao asked, confused. It's my nickname for her, Lin Yi explained helplessly. It wasn't a good nickname to tell people. Then why don't you give me a nickname too? Xiao Xiao felt that someone Lin Yi would give her a nickname had to be really close. Otherwise, why would Lin Yi do it with one phone call? Lin Yi was going crazy. Who would ask someone to give her a nickname? Lin Yi ignored her and kept his mouth shut. Lin Yi realized that Xiao Xiao was the type of person who'd shine with a bit of sunshine and flood with a bit of water. The more he talked to her, the more trouble she'd have. Lin Yi decided not to talk to her anymore. Xiao Xiao saw that Lin Yi was ignoring her and looked out the window, feeling wronged. When they were almost at Dunmeng Street, Lin Yi's phone vibrated. It was a text. Boss, I can't wait anymore. I'm going in first, they might do something to fun. The text was from Kong Xiaobo. Lin Yi frowned. This Kong Xiaobo couldn't hold it in, going into the tiger's lair by himself. Wasn't he just causing trouble? But Lin Yi understood Kong Xiaobo's feelings. Anyone in this situation wouldn't be able to hold it in if their loved one was kidnapped. Lin Yi called Kong Xiaobo, and sure enough, the phone was turned off. It seemed that Kong Xiaobo had made up his mind. There was only a compound that looked like a factory near Dunmeng Street 7. Lin Yi didn't see any other buildings as he drove closer. This was the outskirts of the city, and other than the barren land, there was only a building a long distance away. Who's there? As soon as Lin Yi's car reached the entrance of the compound, two bulky men came out and blocked Lin Yi's way. Tourists. Lin Yi pretended to be scared, but he was calculating in his heart. This place was heavily guarded, and it didn't look like something Kong Mingming had done. If Kong Mingming just wanted to capture fun for revenge or to vent his anger, he wouldn't have created such a heavily guarded place. Could it be another group of people? But Lin Yi was curious. Why did these people want to capture Fun? Fun shouldn't have offended anyone. This is private property, don't walk around here, leave. The bulky man looked at Lin Yi's car and saw that it was a sports car with a man and a woman in it. He believed that it was a couple, so he didn't mind and waved his hand impatiently, telling them to leave. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Lin Yi started the car, and it seemed like he was going to reverse, but he suddenly stepped on the accelerator and crashed into the two bulky men. Bang, bang dash, two loud noises were heard, and the two bulky men were sent flying. They fell to the ground with blood flowing out of their mouths. Chapter 471. Chapter 471, Crash inside the courtyard, in the 3 tile-roofed houses in the middle. A fierce-looking one-eyed man kicked Kong Xiaobo's butt, sending him tumbling to the ground. "You're sneaking around like a bad guy. You're not a reporter, are you?" Kong Xiaobo was the unluckier one. He was afraid of being discovered by the 2 guards at the front door, so he climbed the wall from the side to enter the courtyard. His strategy wasn't a problem, but the one-eyed man was peeing at the foot of the wall when he climbed the wall. Kong Xiaobo jumped down, startling him so much that he stopped peeing. The one-eyed man was furious and dragged Kong Xiaobo into the tile-roofed house. "Where's Xiaofen? Where did you take Xiaofen? Who are you people?" Since he was caught, Kong Xiaobo threw caution to the wind. He straightened his neck, looking like he was ready to die a martyr's death. "Xiaofen?" The one-eyed man froze. "What Xiaofen? What the hell are you doing? You caught my girlfriend, and you're asking me what I'm doing?" Kong Xiaobo raged. "What are you doing? Your girlfriend? She can't be the cripple that was sent here, right?" The one-eyed man remembered the cripple that had been sent here earlier. "Where is she? Let her go." Kong Xiaobo wasn't afraid of anything now that he'd thrown caution to the wind. "If you don't let us go, my boss will be here, and it'll be your death sentence." "Huh?" The one-eyed man laughed as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. "Your boss? Who do you think your boss is? Our death sentence? Since you're with that cripple, then you can be locked up together. Since you refused to take the path to heaven, chose to walk into hell, then you can be a husband and wife. I'll cut off your organs and let you share the joys and sorrows." "Ha, ha." 2 loud bangs came from the yard as soon as the one-eyed man finished, followed by a series of screams. Then silence. What happened? One-eyed dragon suddenly became alert and asked a man next to him, "Ertzi, lock this guy in the basement first." "Is it a cop? My boss is here." "You're dead meat." Kong Xiaobo had an inexplicable confidence in Lin Yi. If Lin Yi came, then he and Xiaofen would be out of danger. "Your boss?" One-eyed dragon breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it was not the police, it would be easy. He said to his men, "Biaozi and Fei Zi at the door should have been dealt with. Let's go out and see. Then this kid." Zi pointed at Kong Xiaobo and asked, "If you want to leave it here, he won't be able to run out even if the door is locked." One-eyed dragon said indifferently, "Take this guy and go out to see which idiot came to offer his kidney." "All right." Ertzi took out a shotgun from the mezzanine of a table in the house and held it in his hand. He then walked out of the tile-roofed house with One-eyed dragon. But the scene in front of them shocked them. Biaozi and Fei Zi were lying on the ground in a terrible state, their faces covered in blood. They were clearly dying. Looking at the yard, there was only an Audi TT sports car left. Biaozi and Fei Zi were obviously hit by this car. "Motherfucker, kill them." One-eyed dragon panicked. This yard was usually guarded by the 4 of them, and now 2 of them were killed by a car. How could he tolerate it? They have guns." Xiao Xiao said in panic as she saw One-eyed dragon and Zi coming out of the house. "Ha! I told you that it's dangerous. If you're afraid, I'll leave the car with you. You can drive back now." Lin Yi looked at the pale Xiao Xiao and said faintly, "I promise that no one will chase you." I'm not leaving." Xiao Xiao didn't dare to drive away by herself. She knew that following Lin Yi was the safest, and although she was a little scared, she was also a little excited. Lin Yi was like a lone hero in a movie, charging into the headquarters of a criminal organization all by himself, ready to wipe them out in one fell swoop. Lin Yi didn't say much. The moment Zi raised his gun, he stepped on the accelerator, and the car spun in an S shape in the yard. With a bang, Zi was sent flying, and the gun was nowhere to be seen. Lin Yi didn't want to reveal too much of his strength in front of Xiao Xiao, so using the car to hit people was the best solution. One-Eyed Dragon thought that with the gun out, the people in the car in front of him would obediently surrender. After all, normal people would have an instinctive fear when they saw a gun. As long as they weren't desperados, they wouldn't act rashly. So he didn't think that Lin Yi would still dare to drive and hit Z, who was holding a gun, away. Feeling that the situation wasn't good, he wanted to run. He was only being paid to be a guard, and he didn't want to do something like this. He didn't want the money, he just wanted to run. But the next moment, his vision went black, and he fell to the ground, unconscious. Lin Yi took off his belt and tied his hands, then used Z's belt to tie his legs, and threw him to the side. Lin Yi had killed 3 of them already, and naturally, he wouldn't leave no survivors. This one-eyed man seemed to be the leader of the group, and so Lin Yi knocked him out when he tried to run away. Xiao Xiao's eyes were wide open as she looked at Lin Yi's smooth movements, full of admiration and excitement. If Xiao Xiao was admiring Lin Yi's driving skills before, now she was admiring Lin Yi as a person. Xiao Xiao knew that even her father's bodyguards wouldn't be able to do it as cleanly as Lin Yi, taking care of the people in the yard so easily. Lin Yi walked to the tile-roofed house in the yard and kicked the door to pieces. The windows of the tile-roofed house weren't transparent, so Kong Xiaobo couldn't see what was going on outside. He jumped at the sound, but when he saw who it was, he was excited. "Boss! You're here? You punk, couldn't you wait for me? What if something happened?" Lin Yi scolded Kong Xiaobo. "Where's Fun?" "I don't know, but from what they said, I think she's locked in the basement," Kong Xiaobo said. "Oh, did they say why they want to capture her?" Lin Yi said as he kicked open a door in the house. There was an entrance to the basement. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He was overthinking things, thinking that the basement would be hidden. He didn't expect it to be right in front of him. But thinking about the skills of Cyclops and the others, Lin Yi understood. Chapter 472. The hideout of a criminal organization. No. But I think they said something like they were going to give us their kidneys, something about cutting out Fun and me's organs and making us suffer together, Xiaobo said with a shake of his head. Oh. Lin Yi paused. Kidney? Organs? Could this be the hideout of the organ trafficking organization? It couldn't be that coincidental, could it? Thinking back to what Ling Shan had told him, that the organization targeted beggars, homeless people, and the disabled, Lin Yi realized that Xiaobo was a disabled person, wasn't she? The people in the slums weren't rich either. It was possible that they'd be targeted by the organ trafficking organization. Lin Yi kicked the door open, but Kong Xiaobo rushed in first. Lin Yi shook his head. Kong Xiaobo was too impatient, and he didn't know if there were more people in the basement. But Lin Yi's jade didn't warn him, so Lin Yi didn't stop him. Xiaobo. Fun wasn't expecting Kong Xiaobo to show up here. You. How did you get here? Fun's first thought was that Kong Xiaobo had been captured as well, but thinking about it, the door was kicked open. Could it be that Kong Xiaobo was here to save her? But there were 4 bulky men guarding here, so how did Kong Xiaobo get here? Fun raised her head and saw Lin Yi's silhouette at the door. She immediately understood that Kong Xiaobo must have gotten here with Lin Yi's help. But Fun was very touched. Although there was Lin Yi's help, Kong Xiaobo risked his life to save her, and that was enough to make her happy. To have a man who loved and cared for her like this, Fun felt that she wouldn't have any regrets in this life. Heh, I saw you get captured, so I took a taxi and chased after you and called boss. Kong Xiaobo scratched his head, embarrassed. If boss didn't show up in time, I might have been locked up as well. Boss, thank you. Fun called Lin Yi boss just like Kong Xiaobo. She was filled with gratitude towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand casually. He had already acknowledged Kong Xiaobo as his follower, and Lin Yi wouldn't complain no matter how much he helped him. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was thinking about something else. In the basement, Fan wasn't alone. There were two other people sitting in the corner, avoiding eye contact. They didn't know who Kang Xiaobo and Lin Yi were, and they didn't dare ask. One of them was a 16 or 17-year-old boy, and judging from his clothes, he was probably a beggar. The other was a woman in her 30s, also a disabled person. She was dressed very simply, and she was missing 2 arms. If there was only Fan here, Lin Yi would have thought that it was a conspiracy against Fan or Kang Xiaobo, but seeing that there were other people here, and with Kang Xiaobo's words about cutting organs, Lin Yi was certain that this was a stronghold of the organ trafficking organization. Xiao Xiao was a little scared and excited as she carefully followed behind Lin Yi. As far as she was concerned, Lin Yi was a hero who destroyed a criminal organization. Xiao Xiao usually did things that bordered on the law, like fighting, racing, and so on, but in her heart, she admired heroes as well. It was just that she couldn't be a hero, so she looked for excitement in other ways. Now that she saw Lin Yi destroy a criminal organization all by himself, she couldn't be more excited. Lin Yi, is this a criminal organization? Maybe, Lin Yi planned to call Ling Shan and have her take over. Lin Yi wasn't a hero. His only goal here was to save Fan, and the reason why he left one alive was because he wanted to know why these people kidnapped Fan. As for other things, Lin Yi didn't care. As for whether or not he could find the organization behind this, Lin Yi didn't care. At that moment, Kang Xiaobo saw Xiao Xiao following behind Lin Yi. He couldn't help but give Lin Yi a thumbs up. It's only been a few days, and he's already done with Xiao Xiao? Lin Yi saw through Kang Xiaobo's dirty thoughts and glared at him helplessly. My car's too slow, so I drove Xiao Xiao's car. Oh. Kang Xiaobo was a little disappointed. He thought that Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao were already together. Don't move, I'll make a call, Lin Yi said to Kang Xiaobo and Fan before leaving the basement. Lin Yi, on the other hand, called Ling Shan. Ling Shan looked at Lin Yi's call and really wanted to hang up. She was already annoyed enough, and Lin Yi was still bothering her with some small stuff. Hey! What else is there? I already talked to the traffic police, didn't the cars leave already? Ling Shan roared furiously. She didn't want to pick up the call, but she knew that she couldn't offend Lin Yi too much, but she could at least complain a little, right? She continued, don't you know that I'm very busy? I haven't slept well for days because of the case. Oh, I found a suspected organ trafficking organization's hideout. Since you're busy, I'm leaving, Lin Yi said and hung up. Wah. Ling Shan paused. Suspected organ trafficking organization's hideout? Lin Yi found it? Ling Shan stood up subconsciously. Wait a minute, but she realized that Lin Yi had hung up on her. Ling Shan gritted her teeth in anger, but her heart was thumping with excitement as well. If what Lin Yi said was true, then wouldn't she have all the clues that had been bothering her for a long time? The officers all looked at Ling Shan, confused. They looked at her with questioning eyes, but she didn't explain. I'll go back to my office for a bit. With that, Ling Shan ran back to her office, closed the door, and called Lin Yi back as fast as she could. Huh, I thought you weren't interested. Lin Yi smiled as he picked up the phone. Don't be angry, I'm just excited, I'm not in a good mood. Good man, tell Miss Braindead, where's the hideout? Ling Shan's hair stood on end from her own whining voice, but there was nothing she could do. This Lin Yi could be persuaded, but not cowed. She had no choice but to swallow her pride and ask for help from him. Dunmang Street, Deputy 7th. You better come yourself, drive a big car. Lin Yi said. Chapter 473. The breakup feeling. Shan couldn't help but frown at the scene in the yard. These people are dead? I ran them over, Lin Yi explained faintly. How could you just kill people like that? As a police, naturally, Ling Shan didn't like what Lin Yi was doing. They had guns. If I didn't run them over, why would I wait for them to shoot me? Lin Yi rolled his eyes. I told you to do it yourself, so you can deal with it. Ling Shan nodded. Lin Yi had a point, and Lin Yi had at least left one of them alive. That made her happy. She quickly made a statement for Fun, the beggar, and the disabled woman before letting them into the police car. She'd be sending them back later. Fun, on the other hand, went with Lin Yi. The back seat of the Audi TT was very small, but Kang Xiaobo and Fun had to squeeze in the back. Ling Shan was left to clean up the scene, and Lin Yi left. Actually, even if Lin Yi went to the police station to make a statement, it wouldn't be a big deal. It wasn't just self-defense, but Lin Yi didn't like trouble. It'd be a lot easier if Ling Shan took care of it herself, and he'd be able to give the girl some credit. On the way back, Lin Yi slowed down the car since there wasn't anything urgent. Xiao Xiao was a little unhappy. Lin Yi, why are you driving so slow? If you think it's slow, you can drive. Lin Yi said faintly. Then. You drive. Xiao Xiao was a little annoyed. She wanted to see Lin Yi drive again, but that wasn't possible anymore. Tang Yun went back to the classroom and thought about what happened this morning. She thought it was fake, but the more she thought about it, the more worried she got. Did Xiao Xiao really have something to do with Lin Yi? Thinking about Xiao Xiao suddenly transferring to Songshan Songshan and sitting next to Lin Yi, Tang Yun felt a little annoyed. If Xiao Xiao had nothing to do with Lin Yi, why would she bother Lin Yi every day? She clearly knew that Lin Yi's girlfriend was her, but she still dared to say those words to Lin Yi in front of her. Could it be that what she said in the morning was true? Otherwise, why would a girl sully her own reputation by saying that she had a relationship with Lin Yi and might be pregnant? Let Lin Yi take her to the hospital for a checkup. Tang Yin thought that even if she had that kind of relationship with Lin Yi, she couldn't just let everyone know, could she? Unless she was threatened by external factors and was in a hurry to announce her relationship with Lin Yi, then she would throw caution to the wind. Was Xiao Xiao's situation the same way? If it weren't for her relationship with Lin Yi, she wouldn't have said these things, would she? Since she was shameless enough to say these things, did it mean that there was something going on between her and Lin Yi? Tang Yun's mind was a mess, filled with the scene from this morning. She didn't want to believe that Lin Yi would fall in love with someone else, but Xiao Xiao's words hinted that Lin Yi didn't fall in love with someone else. He was with Xiao Xiao first, and then with her. Otherwise, Tang Yun wouldn't believe that Xiao Xiao would fall in love with Lin Yi just a few days after transferring, and even have that kind of relationship with him. The only possibility was that Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao knew each other from before, thinking back to the time when she asked Lin Yi about their relationship, and Lin Yi only said that Xiao Xiao had seen him drive before and wanted to learn from him. Tang Yun's frown deepened. Learning to drive. Just learning to drive. Why did she have to go through so much trouble to be in the same class as Lin Yi? Tang Yun took out her phone and looked at it. There were no missed calls, no messages. Why wasn't Lin Yi looking for her? Just like that, Tang Yun endured until the end of the first period, and still didn't get a call from Lin Yi, nor did she get a message from Lin Yi. She waited in the classroom for a long time, but Lin Yi still didn't come looking for her. When they separated in the morning, Tang Yun told Lin Yi that he would look for her after the first period. But even when the bell rang, Lin Yi wasn't there. Tang Yun's mind was a mess. Could it be that what happened this morning was real? Tang Yun was regretting it. If she had known this would happen, she would have ignored her pride and continued to see what Xiao Xiao had to say. However, at that time, he couldn't let go of his pride, so he left first. In the second period, Tang Yun didn't even react to the teacher's question, and she didn't know how she got through it. After class, Tang Yun couldn't take it anymore. How could Lin Yi do this? Even if he had something to do with Xiao Xiao, shouldn't he at least give her an explanation? He didn't even say anything. What did he think she was? Tang Yun was a little pissed off, but she gathered her courage and went to Lin Yi's classroom. She pulled a classmate over and asked him to call Lin Yi out for her. Tang Yun wanted to ask Lin Yi face to face, what did he mean by this? The whole school knew about Lin Yi and Tang Yun, so no one thought it was strange for Tang Yun to come looking for Lin Yi. The classmate looked around the classroom and said, Lin Yi isn't here. Oh. Tang Yun paused, not sure why, but she asked again, then is Xiao Xiao here? The student looked around and shook his head at Tang Yun, Feng Xiao Xiao isn't here either, oh. Thank you. Tang Yun's eyes were sore, and she wanted to cry. Lin Yi wasn't here, and Xiao Xiao wasn't here either. How could these two not be here at the same time? Could it be that they really went out together? Tang Yun stumbled at the thought of this possibility, almost falling to the ground. She quickly grabbed the wall to steady herself. She didn't think that there was something going on between Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao, but now she was even more suspicious. She thought back to what Xiao Xiao said to her this morning, didn't Lin Yi give you a breakup fee? I've known Lin Yi for a long time, and I wanted to make you a mistress out of pity, sharing Lin Yi with you, but you didn't know what was good for you, so I had to let Lin Yi be with you for nothing. Tang Yun felt wronged. Wait, breakup fee? Tang Yun suddenly remembered that Lin Yi seemed to have given her mother something this morning. Could it be the breakup fee Xiao Xiao was talking about? Tang Yun called her mother's number and took a deep breath, pretending to be calm. Mom, where are you? Chapter 474. It was a misunderstanding. That was 500,000. Mrs. Tang had never seen so much money in her life. She'd been over the moon when Lin Yi gave her 200,000. Although 150,000 was to pay off Wang Luwei's debt, it was still Lin Yi's money. It meant that Lin Yi cared about Tang Yun. Mrs. Tang was smiling happily at the bank card in her hand. She was in an indescribably good mood. Suddenly, her phone rang, startling her. She picked it up and saw that it was her daughter calling. When Tang Yun asked her where she was, Mrs. Tang didn't think much about it and said that she was at the bank. She regretted it after she said it. Lin Yi had been secretive when he gave her the money, not wanting Tang Yun to know. But now that she'd exposed it, she hoped that her daughter wouldn't suspect anything. I wanted to see how much money we had left after your dad was hospitalized, so we could figure out how big of a retail space we could buy. Mrs. Tang explained. Mom, how much did Lin Yi give you this morning? Tang Yun's heart tightened. She'd suspected that Lin Yi had given her mother money, and now that her mother was in the bank, she was even more certain. So Tang Yun didn't even ask if Lin Yi had given her mother money. She only asked how much, to show that she already knew about it and that her mother didn't need to hide it anymore. Mrs. Tang paused. Her daughter already knew? She didn't think that her daughter was lying to her. She hesitated. 500,000, what? 500,000. Tang Yun's body felt like it was going to collapse. It was as if all the energy in her body had been sucked out by her mother's words. Her phone fell to the floor with a bang, the back cover and battery separating. Tang Yun didn't seem to notice it at all. Her body swayed, and she would have fainted if it weren't for the fact that she was holding onto the wall. Tears rolled down his cheeks. Sure enough, he had given his mother a lot of money. 500,000, that was 500,000. It was enough for his family to buy a retail house. Why would Lin Yi give his family 500,000 yuan for no reason? The last time his father had an operation, he only took out 200,000 yuan, including the money he gave to Xiao Wei. But this time, he took out 500,000 yuan. What did this mean? Tang Yun's first thought was the breakup fee Xiao Xiao mentioned this morning. Only a breakup fee would Lin Yi give them so much money, right? As expected, as expected. Tang Yun leaned against the wall as tears rolled down her cheeks. Why? Why would Lin Yi bother him when he had Xiao Xiao? Or was it that he was too stupid and naive, thinking that he was different from those hedonistic young masters, but in reality, he was no different from them. Thinking about Xiao Fan's experience, Lin Yi's actions didn't need any explanation. Lin Yi, I hate you. Tang Yun bit her lips, not knowing what to do or what to do. What's wrong, Yun Yun? What are you doing? Who's bullying you? Xinwen came out of the washroom to see Tang Yun crying against the wall, her phone on the ground in pieces. Xinwen. Tang Yun forced a smile when she saw Xinwen. It's nothing. I'm just a little dizzy. Dizzy? Why are you crying if you're dizzy? Xinwen didn't believe her. Did someone bully you? Yun Yun, tell me, I'll chop him up with a cleaver. Xinwen had been this fierce since she was young, and she was still the same now. It's nothing, it's really nothing. Tang Yun, naturally, wouldn't tell Xinwen about her sadness, even if she was her best friend. She was abandoned by Lin Yi. How could she say that? Xinwen was the one who told her to stay away from Lin Yi, but she didn't listen. Now she was at a loss, wasn't she? Xinwen saw that Tang Yun didn't want to talk about it, so she picked up the phone parts and stuffed them into Tang Yun's hands. Thank you. Tang Yun wasn't in the mood to check if the phone was broken or not, so she stuffed it into her pocket. Yun Yun, if you're wronged, you have to tell me, I'll help you. Xinwen said worriedly. Thank you. But I'm really fine. Tang Yun shook her head. Xinwen helped Tang Yun back to the classroom, and the bell rang. Xinwen couldn't ask anymore, so she sighed and went back to her seat. On the way back to school, Lin Yi looked at the time on the dashboard and suddenly remembered that the first class had already ended, and Tang Yun still wanted to find him. Was she worried? Of course, Lin Yi didn't think too much about it, because from Tang Yun's expression this morning, although she was a little angry, it was far from suspicion, so Lin Yi wasn't worried. How could he know that the 500,000 he gave to Mrs. Tang was taken as a breakup fee by Tang Yun? If he knew it would be like this, he wouldn't have done it. He took out his phone and dialed Tang Yun's number, but the phone was turned off, which surprised Lin Yi. Could this girl be angry because I didn't look for her after class? Boss, are you calling sis-in-law? Kong Xiaobo saw that Lin Yi was on the phone, and he could guess who it was. I promised Tang Yun that I would find her after the first class, but I missed it because I saved you. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Ah. No way. Then wouldn't I be the greatest sinner? Kong Xiaobo was shocked and quickly said, Boss, do you need me to explain to her? No need, I'll explain, Lin Yi smiled. He didn't have the habit of letting others testify. From his perspective, it wasn't a big deal, so he didn't mind. Tang Yun was angry. Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, was secretly delighted as she clenched her fists. This was great. She'd finally pissed Tang Yun off. It seemed like the move she used this morning wasn't bad. She'd have to use it more often in the future. Lin Yi called Tang Yun's phone and found that it was turned off, so he put the phone on the dashboard, and just as he put it down, the phone rang. Lin Yi thought it was Tang Yun calling back, but it was Fatty Lai. Hello? Fatty Lai? Lin Yi picked up the phone. Chapter 475. Let you know, oh? What good news? Lin Yi paused, guessing that there was some progress with the medicine company. Boss, I'm at Professor Guan's. Are you free? If you have time, come over and tell me in detail. It's about the auction, Fatty Lai said. Alright, I'll come over now. Lin Yi looked at the time. He'd already skipped most of the morning's classes, so he didn't mind skipping a bit more. Then I'll wait for you here. Fatty Lai hung up excitedly. I still have something to do later. Xiao Xiao, can you send Kong Xiaobo and Fan back? Lin Yi asked as he looked at Xiao Xiao. Sure, go do what you need to do. Xiao Xiao was laughing inside, thinking that it was better if he didn't go back to school now. Tang Yun would get angrier and angrier, and she'd break up with him if she couldn't see him. Lin Yi didn't think that much about it. he didn't know what Xiao Xiao was thinking. He drove to the entrance of Songshan Medical University and got out of the car. Cars weren't allowed in the residential area of the school, and unfamiliar cars had to be registered. It was Xiao Xiao's first time here, so Lin Yi didn't bother and walked over. Xiao Xiao sat in the driver's seat, pleased with herself as she drove Kong Xiaobo and Fen to the slums. She wanted to send Fen back first, and on the way, she'd ask Kong Xiaobo about Lin Yi. Xiaobo, can you tell me more about Lin Yi? Xiao Xiao asked as she drove. Boss. Xiaobo didn't feel like there was anything wrong with that, so he started rambling on and on. Ling Shan waited for Lin Yi to leave before calling the team over, quickly surrounding Dunmeng Street 7. Lu Wangli jumped out of the police car and looked at the 3 dead and 1 injured on the ground, as well as the 2 rescued victims. He gave Ling Shan a thumbs up. Captain Song, you're way too amazing. You found the organ trafficking organization's hideout in one go? Ling Shan's face reddened at Lu Wangli's compliment. She coughed a couple of times. According to my initial observations, this isn't the main base of the criminal organization. It's just a transfer point, where the beggars, homeless people, and handicapped people are sent here and await the next step of the criminal operation. That's still amazing. Our team searched the whole city without sleep, but we didn't find any clues. Captain Song is really something. Another senior captain in the criminal police team also said with admiration. That's right, Captain Song. When Ling Shan was the captain of the city's criminal police team, these captains weren't very happy with her, but after Ling Shan solved several big cases in a row, along with her first place in the police tournament, they were all very impressed with her. Ling Shan, on the other hand, was blushing a little. Thinking about how she'd gotten all this information just by acting cute to Lin Yi, Ling Shan felt really ashamed. She felt like she'd lied to someone else about how she'd gotten all the credit. Ling Shan didn't know how to explain herself in front of everyone's praises, so she turned to Lu Wangli. Lu Wangli, send the 2 victims back first, the rest of you, send the suspect to the hospital. Ling Shan sighed as she looked at the busy workers. Was her life a failure? Now that she wasn't relying on Huijuan anymore, she had to rely on Lin Yi, but when she thought about it, this was her own ability. Other people didn't know who Lin Yi was, and she was the only one who could get Lin Yi's help. No matter what the process was, the result would be the same, and that was enough. As for her acting cute to Lin Yi and calling him Miss Brain Dead, she could just treat it as a joke between friends. She didn't have to worry too much about it. Many of her colleagues had nicknames too, and they weren't all that nice, like Fierce Bull or Iron Bullet. Her nickname was only for Lin Yi. Ling Shan knew that she was just comforting herself, but it still made her feel a lot better. Lin Yi arrived at Xuemin's house. Fatty Lai was sitting on the sofa, talking to Xuemin excitedly, but Xuemin didn't interrupt, only nodding with a smile. Xuemin knew that Fatty Lai wasn't good at business, so he only listened to Fatty Lai's point of view and didn't interfere. After all, different professions were worlds apart. He was famous in the medical world, but that didn't mean he was good at other things. It'd be disgusting if he were to criticize others. Boss, you're here. Fatty Lai jumped up from the sofa excitedly when he saw Lin Yi. You're quite agile. Lin Yi was a little puzzled. Fatty Lai seemed to have a spring on his butt, jumping up with a whoosh. It wouldn't be a big deal if he didn't have such a fat body, but it was rare to see someone so agile with such a fat body. I've been working out. Fatty Lai said. But my genes aren't good, I get fat just from drinking water. I've been trying to lose weight, but I just can't. Oh, it's your genes. I'll help you adjust them when I'm free, Lin Yi said faintly. Okay. Huh. Fatty Lai jumped up in shock, looking at Lin Yi in disbelief. Boss, you're saying that genes can be adjusted? Yes, Lin Yi nodded. But I like you because you're chubby. Then I won't adjust them, this is good. Fatty Lai changed his mind after hearing that Lin Yi liked him. Lose a little more weight, Lin Yi smiled. When my company is on the right track, I'll perform acupuncture on you when I'm free. Actually, performing acupuncture on Fatty Lai was a piece of cake, and he could do it anytime. He could even perform acupuncture while talking. The problem was that Lin Yi didn't really trust Fatty Lai yet. He didn't treat him as a true confidant, so he wasn't in a rush to give him any benefits. He'd observe him for a while before deciding. Okay, boss, you're too good to me. Sob. Fatty Lai was so emotional that he started crying again. Lin Yi was speechless. It seemed like he couldn't change his crybaby habit. He couldn't cure it. It was a personality problem. Hey, boss, don't be angry. I was so emotional that I started crying. Okay, I won't cry anymore. Fatty Lai suddenly remembered that Lin Yi didn't want him to cry, so he quickly stopped. Chapter 476. Matters for the auction. Fatty Lai returned to normal after Lin Yi sat on the sofa, smiling as he took out a brochure from his briefcase and handed it to Lin Yi. Boss, take a look at this. Lin Yi took the brochure from Fatty Lai and flipped through it. Auction? Lin Yi took a look and realized that it was a brochure introducing the auction, and the venue was Yanjing City. That's right. Fatty Lai nodded. But this isn't a normal auction. It's a super auction that all the noble houses attend, and it's held once a year. Oh. Lin Yi paused. He didn't expect this auction to be so influential, and Fatty Lai must have some power if he could get his hands on a brochure for this auction. Mr. Lai is right, I know about this auction. They send me an invitation every year, but I've never attended it before. Xuemin smiled self-deprecatingly. With Xuemin's current status, he was the target of all the noble houses. A miracle doctor was far more useful than a profitable business partner. What was the use of money if he was dead? Therefore, in order to show how much the aristocratic families valued Guan Xuemin, they would send him more than one invitation every year. However, Guan Xuemin had always been an honest person, so he wouldn't charge exorbitant medical fees. Naturally, he wouldn't attend any auction. This time, Professor Guan must go. Fatty Lai said with a smile. If I'd known that you had so many invitations, and that you could bring people along, I wouldn't have wasted so much effort to get you an invitation. Ha! Lin Yi smiled. Fatty Lai had wanted to show off when he got the invitation, but he didn't expect Xuemin to have several of them. He wasn't in the mood to show off right away. In this auction, only some rare treasures are being auctioned. Only the financial resources of the various aristocratic families can afford to buy these things. Fatty Lai said, of course, other than the traditional aristocratic families participating, there will also be some new entrepreneurs invited. These people also have a lot of potential. You're saying that we'll be auctioning the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing at this auction? Lin Yi had a rough idea of Fatty Lai's intentions. That's right. Everyone who attends this auction is rich. As long as they're willing to chase after us, it'll be hard for our products not to be sold out. Fatty Lai said. Alright, you can decide. Lin Yi nodded. Since Fatty Lai was in charge, if he said it could be done, then it would be done. It's great following you, boss. Fatty Lai was so happy that Lin Yi wasn't interfering at all. He almost cried again, but he managed to hold it in. Boss, I've booked 3 tickets for tonight. We'll leave for Yanjing in a bit. So urgent? Lin Yi paused. Isn't the auction 3 days from now? That's for the auction. It's fine if we're just going to buy stuff, even if it's a day or 2 later, Fatty Lai said. But we're going to sell stuff at the auction as well, so we'll have to leave early. We need to submit it in advance. I see. Lin Yi nodded, following Fatty Lai's arrangements. He told Peng Zhan and the miss that he had something to do and would be away for a few days. Peng Zhan, naturally, didn't say anything, but Meng Yao, on the other hand, replied nonchalantly. Mind your identity, don't flirt with other girls. Ha. Lin Yi shook his head at Meng Yao's message and called Tang Yun. Unfortunately, Tang Yun's phone was still turned off. Lin Yi could only send a message to Tang Yun, explaining that there was nothing going on between him and Xiao Xiao, and that he had to go to the auction in Yanjing and bring her a gift. At the same time, in Dr. Kang's house, Dr. Kang, naturally, received an invitation to the auction as well. Although House Kang wasn't even considered a low-level noble house, they were still the head of the company. Naturally, they would be part of the auction. Plus, House Kang would bring out some stuff for the auction every year. Why is the auction early this year? Dr. Kang looked at the invitation in his hand curiously. Yeah, father, it's always August every year. I wonder what's up with House Yu this year. Kang Guifeng nodded, confused. Silence. Dr. Kang glared at Kang Guifeng. House Yu's business is not something you can talk about. There's no outsiders here. Kang Guifeng knew that he said something wrong, but he still tried to defend himself. No outsiders? It'll be bad if there are outsiders. You're putting us in a position where we can't recover from. Dr. Kang humphed coldly. Don't even think about this in the future. We're at a crucial stage of becoming a noble house, don't cause trouble. It's just the two of us now, but you're used to saying it. What if you say it out loud when you go out? Wouldn't that ruin everything? Yes, father. I was wrong. Kang Guifeng quickly apologized. No matter why House Yu brought forward the auction this time, we, House Kang, still have to participate. Dr. Kang humphed. This time, I'll go with you and Zhaolong to Yanjing. We'll go to Xiao family first to propose marriage, and then we'll go to the auction. Yes, father. Kang Guifeng nodded. The items for the auction this year, are we going to prepare the same as last year's? Yes, but we have to prepare an extra portion as a betrothal gift to Xiao family. Dr. Kang said. Prepare it as soon as possible, we'll be leaving tomorrow. Don't worry, father. Kang Guifeng nodded. Dr. Kang trusted Kang Guifeng. This eldest son was much more reliable than his youngest son. He hoped that this trip to Yanjing would not only be able to get the support of Xiao family, but also earn a fortune from the auction. Every year, House Kang would prepare a few portions of golden creation at the auction. It was highly sought after by all the noble houses, and usually sold for a sky-high price. This was also one of the sources of income for House Kang every year. However, the so-called golden creation medicine was just a normal golden creation medicine that wasn't diluted. At most, some of the ingredients were older and more effective. Chapter 477. Chapter 477, Return it to him. Xiao Xiao happily went back to school, looking for a chance to use Lin Yi's incident to attack Tang Yun. Lin Yi wasn't in school, and Tang Yun wouldn't even have a chance to confront him. La la la. Xiao Xiao started laughing happily. She walked quickly to Class 9's door, and was about to call Tang Yun out to talk to her when her phone rang in her pocket. Only Xiao Xiao dared to set her phone to ringtone in school, the others had to be careful even if it was vibrating. Jifeng had just finished checking the 12th grader's discipline, and he was walking past the hallway when he heard the ringtone. He was about to explode when he saw that it was Xiao Xiao. He lowered his head helplessly and pretended not to see it, walking away quickly. Sometimes, Jifeng felt that being the dean was a bit of a burden. There were two special students in the school that he couldn't control. One was Lin Yi, and the other was Xiao Xiao. This was too fucked up, he could only pretend he didn't see anything. But Xiao Xiao just had to raise her head and greet Jifeng, her voice sweet. Mr. Wang, Lin Yi has something to do these next couple of days, he can't come to school. He asked me to help him get a leave. She was standing in front of Tang Yun's classroom, not far from Tang Yun's window. The window wasn't closed, and Tang Yun heard it loud and clear. She froze. She was lying on her desk, not paying attention to what was going on outside, but she raised her head upon hearing Xiao Xiao's voice. Her heart froze when she heard that Xiao Xiao was applying for leave for Lin Yi. So, they really had something going on. Oh, okay. Wang Jifeng answered gloomily and quickly turned around to leave. Xiao Xiao's face turned cold as well. She looked at the caller ID and quickly ran to the bathroom to pick it up. What's up? Xiao Xiao, you should go to the hospital today. A middle-aged man's voice came from the other side. Hospital? What hospital? I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to waste my life there. Xiao Xiao was getting agitated all of a sudden, as if she was really against it. Didn't the doctor say that there's a chance of recovery? The middle-aged man said after a pause. Listen to their bullshit. You said Mom wouldn't die, but look what happened. Xiao Xiao was even more agitated. My mom, my auntie, it's the same. You don't have time to accompany me, so please don't waste my life, okay? I'm sorry. The middle-aged man sighed. But Dad has work to do. But this time, Dad's colleague helped me contact an expert. I will send a car to pick you up later. No, I'm not going. I haven't played enough. How much time do I have left? You put me in the hospital for 2 months. How many more months do I have to waste? Xiao Xiao yelled at the other side of the phone before smashing the phone on the ground, panting with rage. The middle-aged man helplessly put down the phone in his hand. Although he also wanted to accompany his daughter often, the nature of his work gave him little time to rest 365 days a year. Xiao Xiao's chest was heaving up and down as she put her hands on the window sill, looking at the students playing on the field. She held back the tears that were about to fall. I can't cry, I'm Xiao Xiao. Go, Xiao Xiao. After calming down for a while, she heard a sound from the bathroom door. She quickly collected her emotions and picked up the phone before walking out of the bathroom calmly. Tang Yun was feeling really bad, and she didn't want to embarrass herself in the classroom. She stumbled to the bathroom to wash her face and calm down, only to see Xiao Xiao walking out. She jumped and yelped, looking at Xiao Xiao with wariness and hostility. Tang Yin didn't know what to do at a time like this, nor did she have any experience like this. At the end of the day, she was just an 18-year-old girl, a 12th grader. She'd never met a love rival before, and her mind was a blank. Xiao Xiao was much calmer than Tang Yun. She looked at Tang Yun and smiled. I'm going on a honeymoon with Lin Yi. He gave you the breakup fee, right? Xiao Xiao knew that her father would still send someone to pick her up, and Lin Yi had something to do. She disappeared as well, so she could use this chance to make Tang Yun misunderstand. He did, but I don't want it. I'll give it back to him. Tang Yun bit her lip and raised her head to look at Xiao Xiao stubbornly. Tell him that I hate him. All right, I'll tell him. Xiao Xiao blinked. Breakup fee? Why did she really give a breakup fee? What was going on? But as weird as it was, Xiao Xiao put on a look of understanding and smiled at Tang Yun. But I suggest you keep the money. I don't want it. Tang Yun looked at Xiao Xiao's back, tears welling up in her eyes. She didn't know if it was because she felt wronged, or because she was mourning this first love that died before it even started. In the afternoon, a black Audi A6L with a special plate stopped in front of Songshan's first school. Captain Feng, we've arrived, the driver reminded the middle-aged man who was resting behind the car. Oh. We're here already? That fast? The man opened his eyes, and one could clearly see the red veins in his eyes. It was obvious that he was exhausted. Turn off the air conditioner and open the window. Yes. The driver turned off the air conditioner and opened the window. The middle-aged man called Captain Feng, took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. When the call was connected, he said, Xiao Xiao, I'm at the gate of your school. How many days is it this time? Xiao Xiao knew that she couldn't hide from this. Whether she rejected or not, her father would come to get her. The phone was quite sturdy, and it didn't break. Xiao Xiao's phone was a custom-made device her father gave her. It had a GPS system and was very sturdy. 2 or 3 days. Chapter 478. Chapter 478, Marriage Proposal, Part 1, No, I'll be waiting for you then. Captain Feng was a little puzzled. What was wrong with his daughter today? Why was she acting so weird? But since Xiao Xiao wanted to come, there was no need for him to say anything else. The reason why Xiao Xiao agreed so quickly was because Lin Yi wasn't at school, and she had to leave as well. One could only imagine how depressed Tang Yun would be. Going against her? That would be a tragic ending. Xiao Xiao waved her fist and went downstairs. She saw the Audi A6L parked outside the school gates, and didn't say anything as she got in the car. Xiao Xiao, the doctor this time is your dad's colleague, an expert in genetic diseases. Captain Feng waited for Xiao Xiao to get in the car before looking at her kindly. His name was Feng Tianlong, a special agent. He couldn't be by Xiao Xiao's side every day due to his work. It was a little regretful, but he didn't regret it. Since he'd chosen this path, he had to walk it down. Oh, another specialist, Xiao Xiao replied faintly. Xiao Xiao nodded faintly. She'd seen too many experts since she was young, but they'd always come back disappointed. Xiao Xiao was pretty much numb to it already. Rather than wasting time with doctors, she'd rather spend her youth and life. At least she wouldn't regret it even if she died. Tianlong shook his head. His daughter's attitude was within his expectations, and he didn't say anything else. In fact, he didn't have much confidence, but as long as there was a sliver of hope, he wanted his daughter to live healthily. The plane slowly landed in Yanjing, and Lin Yi, Fatty Lai, and Fatty Lai got off the plane and checked into the hotel Fatty Lai had booked. Boss, we're auctioning 3 pills of life extension and toxin cleansing this time. Isn't that a little too little? Fatty Lai asked carefully. Rare things are precious. Plus, it's not all for the money. It's mainly for the fame. Lin Yi smiled. I see. Fatty Lai knew that Lin Yi was speaking the truth, but he had his own selfish motives. If there were only 3 pills of life extension and toxin cleansing, then his chances of getting one would be a little low. If there were more, then wouldn't he still have a chance? Of course, he couldn't say this to Lin Yi, so Fatty Lai could only swallow it. With Fatty Lai's help, the procedures for the auction were easily taken care of. All they had to do was provide the auction items, the base price, and so on, and the auction would be completed. Even the organizer of the auction did not force the seller to go through the appraisal. The appraisal was voluntary, and one could apply for it or not. Obviously, the organizer also knew that some rare treasures couldn't be identified on the spot, and those who could participate in this auction were all celebrities. No one was willing to come up with something fake to tarnish their reputation. It was true that there were cases of shoddy goods being passed off as quality goods, but this kind of transaction would also damage the seller's reputation. As the organizer, Hao Xiu, was not a force to be trifled with. Rumor had it that a few years ago, there was a seller who passed off shoddy goods as quality goods, and Hao Xiu ended up bankrupting him. But for Fatty Lai's unknown pill that had never been on the market before, no matter how miraculous his description was, the organizer still set a relatively low price for him, 1 million. Fatty Lai didn't want to explain further. 1 million it was. The pill wouldn't be sold for a cheap price anyway. Forget 1 million, even if it was 100 million, he'd take it without hesitation. Yanjing City, Xiao family. Dr. Kong brought Kong Guifeng and Kong Xiaolong to visit the 2 brothers of the Xiao family, Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben. The old man of the Xiao family had passed away, and Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben had become poor kids. Although the Xiao family was still a low-class noble house, the 2 brothers were pleasantly surprised by Dr. Kang's personal visit. Dr. Kong, you could have just asked Brother Guifeng to come, why did you come yourself? You're giving our Xiao family too much face. Xiao Ji was very excited about Dr. Kang's visit. As long as the marriage with House Kong was successful, the Xiao family would be able to get a loan from the bank, as well as the support of their business partners. By then, the situation of the Xiao family would be reversed. Isn't it just in time for House Yu's auction, so I came along. Dr. Kong smiled. House Yu's auction. Xiao Ji paused. Isn't the auction held in August every year? It's earlier this year, don't you know? Dr. Kong was taken aback as well. The Xiao family may be a low-class noble house, but they should still be invited to the auction. Why did they look like they didn't know? He knew even when he was out of town, but the local Xiao family didn't know? I know. Big brother, the invitation is with me. I was dealing with the funeral of the old man, so I put this matter aside. I forgot to mention it. Xiao Ben was a smart man. After a trace of haze flashed across his face, he said with a smile. Xiao Ben was just lying. In fact, the Xiao family didn't receive the invitation, and that was what pissed him off the most. With the old man's death, they didn't send an invitation. What was House Yu thinking? I see, so it's with you. I thought they forgot about us. Xiao Ji smiled and nodded. It's brought forward. I wonder if Elder Kong has anything that you're determined to get in this auction? Well, the auction list is only released on the day of the auction. I don't know about that. Dr. Kong smiled and shook his head. Xiao Ben felt sad again. Once upon a time, when the Xiao family was at its peak, they could get most of the auction listings a few days before the auction. How awesome were he and his brother back then? When the time comes, I'll definitely get it. But now, they didn't even bother to send out an invitation. The Xiao family may be poor, but they were still a low-class noble house. How could they look down on them like this? Of course. Xiao Ben saw that his brother was about to brag about his past achievements and quickly stopped him. We probably won't be able to bid for anything when the time comes. We might not even be able to attend the auction. There's too much to do at home. Xiao Ben made up an excuse for not being able to attend. Right, Guifeng, where's our gift? Dr. Kong looked at Kong Guifeng. Here. Kong Guifeng waved at Zhaolong, who was at the door. Zhaolong quickly walked over. Uncle Xiao, second Uncle Xiao, this is a box of golden creation ointment. It's just a small gift. Zhaolong said respectfully as he presented the box politely. Chapter 479. Chapter 479, Marriage Proposal, Part 2. They wouldn't have cared about 10 million if it were any other time, but right now, they couldn't be more excited. This young man is Kong Zhaolong, right? What a handsome man. Xiao Ji said to Zhaolong as he accepted the box with a smile on his face. Uncle Xiao, I'm Kong Zhaolong. Zhaolong said politely. Yes, he's a good match for our Xinyan. Xiao Ben nodded as well, annoyed at his niece for not knowing her place. House Kong was such a powerful family, after all. Why wasn't she interested? They'd tried to persuade her for a few days, but she still wouldn't agree. Xiao Ben and Xiao Ji were helpless. At the end of the day, Xinyan was just a distant relative, not a direct descendant of the Xiao family. They couldn't ask for anything. House arrest wasn't the way to go, they had to let her go. Xinyan's parents, on the other hand, were a bit against the marriage at first, but Wang Xuban fell silent after hearing that the man was Dr. Kang's grandson. Qinlin, on the other hand, didn't have much of an opinion. She'd been listening to Wang Xuban all these years, and now that Wang Xuban had agreed, she had no objections. The most important thing was that Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben had said that if they agreed to the marriage, they'd give up on the shares mentioned in the old man's will. But if they didn't agree, they'd take back a portion of the shares from Wang Xuban's company, and they'd threatened to ally with House Kong against his medicine company. Now, Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben were glad that Xinyan was the only one who was against the marriage. There wouldn't be any problems as long as they got through to her. Where's that Wang Xinyan? Why don't you call her out so I can see my future granddaughter-in-law? Dr. Kong asked, smiling as he sat on the sofa. As a grandfather, he was quite satisfied with this granddaughter-in-law, despite the fact that this was a political marriage. I'll go get her now. Xiao Ben gave his brother a look before walking into the living room. I say, sis, brother-in-law, did you guys really get through to my niece's thoughts? Dr. Kong himself came to our house to propose marriage. This isn't something just anyone can do. Xiao Ben said as he looked at Wang Shubin and Qin Lin, who were standing in front of Xinyan's room. Little Yen doesn't agree. I think it's fine. Although Xiao Qinlin didn't have any opinions, she still loved her daughter very much. Seeing that her daughter was unhappy, she naturally didn't want to get married. Or you're a woman with long hair but short knowledge. Xiao Ben was stunned and said with some annoyance, what kind of family does Dr. Kong come from? His eldest grandson Kong Xiaolong is the future heir of House Kong. How could Xinyan lose out by marrying him? Qinlin, I've heard of this Xiaolong before. He's an excellent student, and he doesn't have a single bad habit. I've heard that he hasn't even had a girlfriend. I think he won't mistreat Xinyan. Wang Shubin said. Although he was afraid that something would happen to the company, he didn't want his daughter to be unhappy in the future, so he secretly got someone to investigate Xiaolong. The results of the investigation surprised him. Was this really a rich young master? He had been studying since he was young, and now that he had a PhD, he still had to continue his studies. Most importantly, he didn't have the habit of fooling around with women like other rich young masters. He didn't have a girlfriend since he was young. This was a world of difference between him and his cousin, Kang Mingming. So after getting the report, Wang Shubin didn't reject the marriage anymore. Where else could he find such a good son-in-law? Not only was he good at his studies, he had a good character, and most importantly, he had a good family background. With Miracle Dr. Kang's support, there was no need to worry about the development of his medicine chain company. Is that so? But little Yen doesn't like him. They've never met before, how could they have a relationship? Xiao Qinlin knew that Xiaolong was a good person, so she didn't reject him. But thinking about how her daughter didn't have feelings for him, she still hesitated. Can't feelings be cultivated? Plus, this is just an engagement. If things really don't work out, we can call it off. Xiao Ben said. Right now, we're just using this marriage as an excuse to get some benefits for both of us. Let the two of them get to know each other first, and maybe they'll develop feelings for each other. I see. Xiao Qinlin thought about it. Her second brother's words made sense, but an engagement wasn't a marriage. Let the two of them get to know each other first, and if it worked out, they could stay together. If it didn't work out, they could call it off. Yeah, Dr. Kang's family is waiting outside. Hurry up and get Xinyan out. Xiao Ben was afraid that Dr. Kong would panic. All right then. Xiao Qinlin walked into the room and pushed out a dumbfounded Wang Xinyan after a while. Xinyan didn't understand, why did her parents get convinced by her uncle and second uncle? Asking her to get engaged to someone she didn't know? Her father gave her a lot of reasons, saying how great Xiaolong was, but Xinyan didn't like him. She couldn't fall in love with someone she didn't know. Dad, is your company really that important? Xinyan raised her head and looked at her father, hoping that he would change his mind. Wang Shubin was a little embarrassed, but the company was his life's work. He didn't want it to be ruined. I understand, Xinyan sighed. I can go out with you guys, but I didn't agree to the engagement. All right, let's talk outside. Don't say anything when we get out. Maybe you'll like him just by looking at him. Xiao Ben said. Xiaolong is a rare young man. Xinyan didn't say anything. There was no point in saying anything else. How could Xinyan fight back when her parents had already agreed to it? How could she change? But she didn't plan on marrying a stranger. It was just an engagement, not a marriage. She'd just have to find a way to escape when the time came. Xinyan would never accept a marriage arranged by her family. What year was this? There were still arranged marriages. Xinyan was brought to the Xiao family's living room by Xiao Ben. Xiaolong was immediately attracted by Xinyan's elegant figure. He didn't have a girlfriend, but that was just to show off in front of his grandpa. In fact, he'd been longing for a woman for a long time. Now that Xinyan was officially his fiancée, Xiaolong didn't need to hide anything anymore. His family wouldn't say anything about how he treated Xinyan. Chapter 480. Chapter 480, Cousin visits again. Xiaolong paused when he saw the flash of disgust in Xinyan's eyes. He understood what was going on. From the looks of it, Wang Xinyan was a girl with high standards. She wasn't like those materialistic girls who'd get excited at the sight of a rich young master like him, wanting nothing more than to throw themselves at him. But the more Xinyan acted like this, the more Xiaolong was tempted. He wouldn't say anything if he were to marry a girl who was greedy for money, but he wouldn't be happy about it. Xinyan's reaction was just what he wanted, and the desire in Xiaolong's eyes disappeared in a flash, returning to his previous clarity. He was a schemer, and the fact that he'd been studying so hard for so many years showed how strong his willpower was. "Hello Xinyan, I'm Xiaolong. I hope we can get along well." Xiaolong reached out his hand and greeted Xinyan warmly. If Xiaolong had been like this from the start, Xinyan wouldn't have hated him as much as she did now. After all, he was a sacrifice for the family's benefit. Xinyan wouldn't hate him even if she didn't like him. But the desire in Xiaolong's eyes showed that his heart wasn't pure, and it made Xinyan feel disgusted. She looked at Xiaolong's hand and said faintly, "I'm sorry, I was locked up by my family, and I haven't washed my hands for a few days." "Ah." Xiaolong paused, and his face darkened. But it was only for a second, and he returned to normal. He was angry that Xinyan didn't give him any face at all, saying that she was forced to do it in front of everyone. How could Xiaolong take that? But Xiaolong couldn't afford to fall out with Xinyan right now. First of all, Xinyan was a woman he liked, and there was no harm in pursuing a woman like that. Second of all, he couldn't fall out with the Xiao family for the sake of the family's benefit. It seems that Xinyan doesn't want to marry into House Kong, does she? Dr. Kong was a little angry at Xinyan's words. Xiaolong couldn't say it, but he could. Although the Kong family was not an aristocratic family yet, the marriage was mutually beneficial, and the Xiao family also understood it very well. Moreover, the old master of the Xiao family had passed away, and there were only 2 juniors left. Dr. Kong was qualified to take advantage of his seniority. Xiao Ji was a little irritated as well. He didn't expect Xinyan to be so disrespectful in a situation like this. He was about to scold her a little, but Xiao Ben shot him a look, and he shut his mouth. In the Xiao family, although Xiao Ji was the eldest, Xiao Ben was very intelligent. Xiao Ji now understood that the only way to protect the family was if the two of them worked together. So, he gave up on being the eldest and listened to Xiao Ben. "Elder Kong, she's a girl. How can she agree to it so easily?" Xiao Ben smiled. "It's the young people's business, of course. We're just acting as a middleman, and the key lies with them. Let's get to know each other first, and only then can we plan our next step." Xiao Ben's words were smooth. It was different from what he had originally intended, but Dr. Kong could still accept it. Xinyan was clearly against it, and the Xiao family must have done a lot of work for her. If Dr. Kong were to insist on something, it would only make things worse, and that wasn't what Dr. Kong wanted to see. The only thing he could do was to let the two get to know each other as Xiao Ben suggested. Now that the two know each other, it's better to get to know each other more. "I heard that Xinyan's studying in Songshan. Let Xiaolong go play with her on the weekends when he's free. Dr. Kong nodded. Xinyan, don't say no when I go find you. Xiaolong said with a smile. I'm in 12th grade, and I'm very busy. I don't have time. Xinyan said faintly. Xinyan had the intention to say no, but her reason was flawless. Xiaolong wasn't happy about it, but he could only say, there should be time for a meal, right? I'll just treat you to a meal and get to know each other. That depends on the time. Xinyan frowned, but there was nothing she could do since Xiaolong had already said so. She felt a little depressed when she saw her father's earnest gaze. No matter what, she had to deal with it first. She was still young, and if she dragged it out, something might happen. Xinyan felt a little more at ease at the thought. Dr. Kang's expression softened a little when Xinyan stopped objecting. Guifeng has booked a table at the hotel. Let's go together. Tang Yin didn't know how her day passed. She stumbled home at night to see her mother and father discussing buying a storefront with a smile on her face. Yin, you're back. Mrs. Tang looked at Tang Yin happily, not noticing her daughter's strange mood. Your dad and I are looking into it. We want to get a bigger store, preferably one with 2 floors. Our house is big enough, and it won't cost much. 500,000 should be enough. Oh. Tang Yin replied faintly, unable to say the words that were at the tip of her tongue. She wanted to take back the 500,000 from her mother, but how could she do that now? Tang Yin went back to her room, depressed, and closed the door. She laid on her bed and started crying. After crying for a while, she fell asleep. Tang Yin would go back to her room to read every day after school, so Mrs. Tang didn't find it strange at all. She didn't know how long it had been, but Tang Yin was woken up by a commotion. She got up in a daze, wanting to wash her face before coming back to her room to read. She opened the door to see her brother, Wang Luwei, and his girlfriend, Dan, sitting on the sofa with a hesitant look on their faces. Yin, you're awake? I didn't dare wake you up because you were asleep. Mrs. Tang said happily. You're tired from school every day, so I didn't want to disturb you. Now that you're awake, I need your help with Wei's matter. Tang Yin paused. What's wrong with Wei? Sis. You have to help me. Wei looked at Tang Yin dejectedly, begging. You have to save Dan. What now? What did you do this time? Tang Yin was already in a bad mood, and hearing that Wei was in trouble made her even more unhappy. Wei could see that, and so could Mrs. Tang. She glared at Tang Yin. What, you're not going to care about your brother now that you're rich? Wei could see that, and so could Mrs. Tang. She glared at Tang Yin. What, you're not going to care about your brother now that you're rich? Chapter 481. How am I supposed to return it? Sister, you found a powerful brother-in-law. You must save me this time. Xiao Wei said carefully, it's the same boss we talked about last time. He still won't let me and Xiaodan go, the boss from last time? Didn't you give them the 150,000 already? Tang Yun paused and looked at her brother in confusion. 150,000 yuan was given to him, but he said that 150,000 yuan was the situation 10 years ago. Now that the price of goods has increased so many times, the 150,000 yuan will also have to pay interest. Speaking up to this point, Xiao Wei seemed very angry. He said that either you pay him back 500,000 yuan with interest, or you want Xiao Dan to continue working in the company, or you give him money, 500,000. Tang Yun's eyes widened. How can they be so greedy? Turning 15 into 50 all of a sudden? Does he have a contract? Why don't we go to court to sue him? Where's the contract? Little Wei smiled bitterly. If there was a contract, it wouldn't be like this. The only contract was the one we signed. Xiao Dan had to work for him. If Xiao Dan broke the contract, she would have to compensate him for all his losses. He didn't say how much the losses were, so he could talk nonsense. Besides, we can't afford to go to court. Uncle Tang's matter hasn't been resolved yet, right? Tang Yun sighed. Wei was right. Her family was a weak group, how could they fight against those rich bosses? At that time, not to mention whether or not they could win the lawsuit, even if they did win, they would still be the ones who would suffer losses if they backstabbed Xiao Wei. But, tell me, what can I do? Tang Yin lowered her head. She understood what Wei was implying. He wanted her to ask Lin Yi for money, but how was she supposed to ask Lin Yi for money now? Yuner, although I happen to have the 500,000 Lin Yi gave me, isn't that the money we used to buy a retail store? If we give it away, we won't be able to buy a store. Mrs. Tang interrupted. Look, can't you talk to Lin Yi and ask him for another 500,000? What do you want? Do you think he's a money tree? Tang Yun panicked and stood up abruptly. What money tree? He's rich, and this amount of money is nothing to him. Mrs. Tang looked at her daughter and said with disappointment, now that you have the capital to ask for money, you must ask for more. If you ask for more, he'll definitely agree. Mrs. Tang said. Yes, sister, I beg you. Only brother-in-law can help you with this matter. If you don't go, what about Xiaodan? You can't just watch as she walks into a tiger's den. Xiao Wei also hurriedly advised. You don't understand at all. You don't even know what happened between me and Lin Yi. Why do you always force me to ask for money? Why do you always force me? Tang Yin was so angry that she was on the verge of tears. She screamed at the top of her lungs, I already owe him so much money, how am I supposed to pay him back? How am I supposed to pay him back? I was the one who asked him for money, not you. What do you want me to do in the future? Mrs. Tang helplessly looked at her crazy daughter. Yun-er, do you still not understand? Lin Yi likes you. Your beauty is his capital. If you don't make good use of it, you'll regret it when he breaks up with you. Break up? That's right. We've already broken up. Tang Yin didn't want to talk about her scandal, but she was being forced into a corner. He doesn't want me anymore. Are you happy now? The money from this morning was his breakup fee. Ah. Mrs. Tang froze. Mr. Tang, Wei, and Dan froze as well. Yin, what did you say? Lin Yi broke up with you? You're joking, right? Joking? What kind of joke is this? Do I look like I'm joking? Tang Yin said as she recalled today's sad events and the grievances she'd suffered. Her eyes reddened, and tears started to flow down her cheeks. Mrs. Tang didn't know what to do, she was a snobbish person, but she was still on Tang Yin's side. She quickly picked up her daughter. Good girl, don't cry, Yin. It's fine if they broke up. I've said it before, he's a good-for-nothing, a hedonistic young master. Tang Yin found it funny at her mother's words. Her tears turned into a smile. Mom, didn't you say he was a good person? Mrs. Tang felt a bit awkward. Yin, did he take advantage of you? No. Tang Yin shook her head. I told him that I can't do it before he brings me to his parents. That's good, that's good. Tang Yin was overjoyed. Since he didn't take advantage of him, then forget it. We even got 700,000 for free, it's a big win. Mom, what are you saying? You have to return that money. Tang Yin panicked when she heard that her mother was going to take Lin Yi's money for herself. How can I owe him that much and not pay him back? What's wrong with that? He dumped you, not the other way around. Besides, he gave you a breakup fee, so it's only right that we get it. Mrs. Tang said disapprovingly. Wei, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. He didn't think that his sister and Lin Yi had already broken up. He was hoping that his sister would borrow the money, but now, sister, what about me? Xiao Wei hung his head dejectedly, and Xiao Dan's face was also filled with despair. Wei, don't worry. I won't buy it anymore. I'll give you the money first. Mrs. Tang may be snobbish, but she wasn't a cold-blooded person. She was generous to her family. I know I'm in trouble, but I can't let you and Dan suffer. How about this, you give them the money first? Mom. You still want to touch that money? I told you I'd return it to Lin Yi. Tang Yin panicked. She'd told Xiao Xiao that she'd return the money to Lin Yi. How could she touch that money? The breakup fee is yours, of course. Do you want to see your brother die? Mrs. Tang glared at Tang Yin. It's good enough that he asked for some more money, you're giving it back to him? Tang Yin was speechless. She had to return the money, but she couldn't just ignore Wei's situation. What should she do? But if she took the money without any qualms, what would Lin Yi think of her? He'd definitely look down on her, and Xiao Xiao would laugh at her for being vain and acting all high and mighty. For a moment, Tang Yun was in a dilemma. Yin, why are you so dumb? He played you, isn't it normal for him to give you money? Mrs. Tang humphed. Chapter 482. Chapter 482, Sending Money to the Door, you can have fun with it or dump it. Mrs. Tang said with a wave of her hand. All right, it's decided. We'll go with Wei to that big boss later. Tang Yun felt that it wasn't right to use the money, but there was nothing she could do about it. It was her family's fault for being so unlucky. Sis, don't be sad. That bastard has eyes but can't see. Don't worry, Wei, am a man too. I'll return the money to you. Wei said. He knew what his sister was worried about. I won't make it hard for you. Okay. Tang Yun nodded, comforted. At least Wei wasn't the type of person who only knew how to ask for money. It was enough for her. The bank card was opened under Tang Yun's name. Withdrawing 500,000 in one go, naturally, Tang Yun had to go there herself. They found a 24-hour bank, withdrew the money, and took a taxi with her mother, Wei, and Dan to the area where the big boss lived. Right here? It's so grand. Mrs. Tang said enviously as she looked at the luxurious facilities and beautiful houses. When will we be able to live in a house like this? Auntie, this is Lead Shore. It's one of the most luxurious residential areas in the city. Everyone who lives here is rich, and one house is worth tens of millions. Wei had been here a couple of times, so he was familiar with the market here. Tens of millions? That's expensive. Mrs. Tang was taken aback. She looked at her daughter with pity. I was hoping that your uncle and I would have a chance to live in a mansion like this now that you've found yourself a rich husband. But it seems like that's not possible anymore. Mom, what are you talking about? Tang Yun frowned. This was something that hurt her, and she didn't want to talk about it. I won't talk about it, I won't talk about it. Mrs. Tang thought to herself. Should she find a chance to talk to Lin Yi and see if there was a chance for them to get back together? But these rich young masters probably already had someone arranged for them to marry. Why else would they break up with her without any warning? There had to be a reason behind it. Mrs. Tang was a shrewd old woman, and naturally, she was a bit more scheming than Tang Yin. She thought even further than Tang Yin. Plus, he didn't know about Xiao Xiao, so he thought that there had to be a reason why Lin Yi dumped his daughter. Mrs. Tang thought that even if Lin Yi couldn't marry her because of his engagement, he could at least be a mistress, right? And my requirements are not high. I just want my family to buy a mansion on the bank of the Lead River. If he couldn't do it, he had to ask Lin Yi for another sum of money. He couldn't let him get away with it. Even if he didn't do anything to his daughter, he had hurt her feelings. Tang Yun didn't know that her mother was thinking of something snobbish again. She was still very pure, and naturally, she wouldn't think that her mother would have such embarrassing thoughts. If she knew, she would be furious. However, Mrs. Tang couldn't be blamed for being so snobbish. The fickleness of the world had frightened her. After suffering for so many years, she didn't want her daughter to suffer anymore, so she even thought of becoming a mistress. She couldn't be blamed. It's here. Wei pointed at an independent mansion. Mr. Zhou lives here. Mom, don't say anything when we go in. We can't just give him money this time, we have to make an agreement. Tang Yin took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She returned to normal and stopped thinking about what happened during the day. Tang Yin hadn't interacted with society before, but in a high-class private school like Songshan's first, she had interacted quite a bit. She knew that everything needed a contract. Her father didn't get any compensation because the contract wasn't clear. So she could give that Mr. Zhou some money this time, but he had to write an agreement that he wouldn't pursue Dan's responsibility in the future. All right. I'll listen to you. Mrs. Tang nodded, knowing that her daughter knew a lot. Only then did little Wei ring the doorbell of the villa. Zhou Tiandi had been very depressed these past 2 days. Not only did he offend Lin Yi, but he also offended Sihua. Both of these were people who could kill him instantly. He didn't even have the slightest intention to fight back. His opponents were too strong. Lin Yi was a master above golden class, and Sihua didn't lack golden class masters around him. He could still do whatever he wanted in Songshan with Uncle Yen's support, but now that Uncle Yen was crippled by Lin Yi, he didn't dare go out and show off anymore. Fuck. I, Zhou Tiandi, used to be a big shot in Songshan, but now I'm this useless. Tiandi poured himself a glass of red wine and downed it in one gulp, depressed. But even though he was depressed, he was still glad. He might have offended Sihua, but it wasn't a deep grudge. He just didn't want to work with him, and Sihua wouldn't come after him for that. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had promised not to pursue the matter any further, so Tiandi felt a bit better. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Fortunately, there would be a pretty girl coming to play with him in a while, and that soothed Tiandi's depressed heart a little. Tiandi adjusted his clothes when he heard the doorbell. He knew that it had to be Dan. He'd given Dan an ultimatum. Bring the money tonight, or clean her up and send her here. The maid went to open the door, and Tiandi walked out of the study and headed downstairs to the living room. Tang Yun, Mrs. Tang, Dan, and Wei came to the living room and sat on the sofa awkwardly. Wei and Dan were a bit better, since they'd been here a few times before, but it was Tang Yun and Mrs. Tang's first time in a mansion like this, and they didn't know what to do. Dan, you're here, right? Are you going to give the money, or the person? Tiandi said as he walked down the stairs, but paused when he saw the 4 people on the sofa. But because the sofa's back was facing the stairs, Tiandi couldn't see who they were. Mr. Zhou, we brought the money. Wei stood up and turned to Tiandi. What? You brought the money? Tiandi paused, and anger rushed to his head. He never would have thought that Wei would come up with another 500,000. How was that possible? Wei and Dan were from the countryside, and even if they borrowed from the whole village, they wouldn't be able to get that much money, would they? Chapter 483. Scared to the bone, but Wei's words shattered Tiandi's fantasies. Tiandi's dreams had been shattered in an instant, and he was furious. Yeah, we brought 500,000. We hope that you'll let Dan go, Mr. Zhou. Wei nodded. He didn't want to, but he was willing to give up the money if it could save Dan. Where's the 500,000? Tiandi was pissed, but he couldn't go back on his words. He asked coldly, hoping to find something wrong and use it as an excuse to attack. It's with my sister. Wei said. Sis, can you take a look at him? Tang Yun found the voice familiar, and Wei called him Mr. Zhou. She suddenly realized that she knew this Mr. Zhou. He was Zhou Ruoming's father, Zhou Tiandi. Tang Yun's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't afraid of Zhou Tiandi when she was with Lin Yi, but now that Lin Yi had broken up with her, she'd lost Lin Yi's protection. Wouldn't she be at the mercy of the Zhou father and son? Tang Yun regretted coming here at the thought. She was afraid that Zhou Ruoming would do something outrageous again. Sis. Wei saw that Tang Yun wasn't moving and couldn't help but call out again. Tiandi looked at Tang Yun's silhouette. It was a pretty little figure, and he couldn't help but be moved. Dirty thoughts popped up in his mind as he smiled lewdly. Oh. Your sister's here too. Tang Yun was even more afraid of Tiandi's disgusting voice, but Wei had already called out to her. She had no choice but to brace herself and stand up. She turned around and opened the bag in her hand, pretending to be calm. Mr. Zhou, I've brought the money. I hope you can keep your promise and let my brother and Dan go, Wah. Tiandi froze. He never would have thought that the sister Wei was talking about was Tang Yun. Damn it, why am I so lucky? The more I want to avoid Lin Yi, the more I provoke people related to him. Am I possessed by the god of misfortune? Otherwise, who else could be as unlucky as him? Tiandi thought that Tang Yun was mocking him at first. He was scared out of his wits as his face paled. I don't want it anymore. I don't want the money anymore. Tang Yun frowned as she saw the change in Tiandi's expression. Was he going back on his word? Little Wei was also shocked, and little Dan's expression also changed slightly. Director Zhou, didn't you say that you would release Lil Dan for 500,000? Why are you going back on your word? Little Wei was a little anxious. Mr. Zhou, you won't go back on your word, right? Tang Yun was shocked as well, but in order to not show her fear, she forced herself to remain calm. She couldn't soften at a time like this, or Tiandi would only make things worse. I say, Miss Tang. No, Sis Tang, I'm calling you sis now, please stop messing with me. I didn't do it on purpose, I really didn't do it on purpose. How would I know that Dan is your sister-in-law? I wouldn't have dared to do anything if I had known. Tiandi almost cried. He thought that Tang Yun was mocking him on purpose. After all, a lot of times, powerful people like to say the opposite when they wanted to show off. Tiandi had done it many times when he bullied the weak, so he subconsciously thought that Tang Yun was doing the same thing as well. Tiandi's reaction surprised everyone. Little Wei and little Dan were dumbfounded, and so was Mrs. Tang. They didn't understand why Tiandi's attitude changed 180 degrees after seeing Tang Yun. Tang Yun frowned. After a short moment of confusion, she realized that Tiandi probably didn't know that she broke up with Lin Yi yet. That was why he was being so respectful to her. She could use this chance to leave, but Tang Yun was afraid that Tiandi would come after Wei after he found out that she broke up with Lin Yi. It seemed like he wasn't being sarcastic, he really didn't want the money anymore. Although they didn't know the reason for this change, it was still a pleasant surprise. With that thought, Tang Yun said, Mr. Zhou, you should take the 500,000. This has to end, right? Tiandi thought that Tang Yun was purposely messing with him, and he was angry, but more than that, he was afraid. He knew from his son, Zhou Ruoming, that Lin Yi treated Tang Yun like a precious baby. Last time his son tried to rape Tang Yun, Lin Yi beat him up quite badly. How would he dare mess with Tang Yun again? Plus, Tang Yun's presence here most likely had something to do with Lin Yi. There was a limit to a person's patience. Who wouldn't be happy if he kept messing with Lin Yi and the people around him, especially a master like Lin Yi? Masters usually didn't care about small fry, but if a small fry went too far, then a master wouldn't mind slapping a small fry to death. It was like a dog. You might ignore it if it barked at you, but if it came to bite you once, you might tolerate it. But if it kept on biting you and your family, then you might just kill it and eat its meat. Tiandi felt like he was that dog, and after messing with Lin Yi so many times, it wasn't long before he was slapped to death, and so, Tiandi was completely terrified. He knelt on the ground with a thud, tears streaming down his face. Tang sis, I'm begging you, please don't play with me anymore. I know I'm wrong now, please go back and tell Boss Lin that I'm blind. I'll slap my own face, okay? Just treat me like a fart and let me go." With that, Tiandi raised his arm and started slapping himself across the face. Slap. Slap. The sound of the slaps didn't stop as Tiandi pummeled himself with all his might, getting more and more pumped up as he hit himself. Tiandi's words made Tang Yun blush. What did he mean by treat it like a fart and let it go? She was a girl, wasn't she? How could he be so vulgar? She couldn't help but glare at Tiandi. Tiandi's bad look gave Tang Yun some courage. Since he didn't want the money, then she'd let him write a contract. With a contract, she wouldn't have to worry about him going back on his words in the future. With that in mind, Tang Yun decided to go with the flow and use her connections to intimidate others. Chapter 484. Chapter 484, Amazing Mrs. Tang. At the same time, Little Wei and Little Dan were deeply shocked. The two of them were afraid of Tiandi, but Tiandi was even more afraid of Lin Yi than they were of him. Tiandi was willing to throw away his pride just to get on Tang Yun's good side. It made Wei's blood boil. Wouldn't it be great if Lin Yi hadn't broken up with his sister and was his brother-in-law instead? He'd be able to take advantage of Lin Yi and show off. But why did he break up with his sister? What was so bad about his sister? She was pretty and had a good personality. She was 1 in a million. Was Lin Yi blind? But Wei knew that if Lin Yi was really that amazing, then he wouldn't lack women around him. His sister's advantage wouldn't be much of an advantage anymore. Mrs. Tang, on the other hand, was very emotional and regretful. If only Lin Yi hadn't broken up with Tang Yun. With a son-in-law as powerful as he was, who would dare mess with her family? Mr. Zhou was slapping himself in the face the moment he heard Lin Yi's name. He was too excited. "Humph, my son-in-law said that if you cause trouble for my nephew again, he'll teach you a lesson," Mrs. Tang said with her hands on her waist. She didn't know why, but the words slipped out of her mouth. Tang Yun looked at her mother accusingly. What son-in-law? It was already out of the question, but she couldn't correct it right now. She couldn't let Tiandi know, could she? She had no choice but to let her mother say whatever she wanted. I wouldn't dare. Tiandi said quickly. "Ah, it's Auntie, I apologize for my rudeness. I'll be strict with myself and never cause trouble again. What about the 150,000 I gave you?" Mrs. Tang humphed. Tiandi calling her auntie at his age made Mrs. Tang feel a sense of accomplishment. Tiandi was probably even older than her, wasn't he? Since when had Mrs. Tang ever been treated this way? She was overjoyed. Tang Yun knew that things were about to go south at her mother's words. Wouldn't this make Tiandi suspicious? He wouldn't have given him that 150,000 if he'd known it was Zhou Tiandi, but he'd given him another 150,000 just now. "Mom, Lin Yi said that the 150,000 is what Wei owes him. We should just give it to him," Tang Yun said quickly. Tang Yun had no choice but to lie in order not to be exposed. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to smooth things over. Mrs. Tang, on the other hand, was a little reluctant. She could have used Lin Yi's name to get back the 150,000 yuan. Why did her daughter not want it? Yes, I will return the 150,000 immediately. Immediately. Tiandi didn't have time to think about that. Tang Yun was worrying too much, and with Tang Yun's words, Tiandi wouldn't be suspicious at all. Because that was Lin Yi's personality. He didn't have the time to find fault with small matters. As long as it didn't touch his bottom line, it was usually fine. But although Tang Yun said that Lin Yi didn't want the 150,000 yuan, Mrs. Tang was the one who asked. Tiandi didn't dare refuse. What if Lin Yi's mother-in-law wasn't happy and said a few bad things about him at home? Lin Yi would tear him apart, wouldn't he? Tiandi thought that it would be such a waste if he lost his life over such a small matter. So whether Tang Yun wanted it or not, he'd just give the money to Mrs. Tang and shut her mouth. It'd be best if she could put in a few good words for him and make Lin Yi give up on causing trouble for him. With that thought, Tiandi scrambled up the stairs. Tang Yun glared at her mother, but Mrs. Tang didn't mind. If she could get the money, so what if she borrowed Lin Yi's name? Little Wei and little Dan were also shocked. Just how strong was Lin Yi, to be able to scare Tiandi like this? As far as they knew, Tiandi was a super powerful man. He had money, power, and power. His eldest son, Zhou Ruoguang, was the leader of the gangsters in the North District. With a status like that, he was one of the tyrants in Songshan. But Lin Yi wasn't even here yet. His sister was here, and she scared him to the point of pissing his pants. If Lin Yi was here, would he have to kneel and kowtow? But Wei and Dan didn't dare say anything. They didn't want to mess things up, so they could only talk about it at night. It wasn't long before Tiandi came downstairs. Perhaps it was because he was in a hurry, but he slipped and fell down the stairs like a slide. Tiandi didn't care about the pain on his butt at all as he handed a bag to Mrs. Tang. "Auntie, this is for you. Didn't I say I don't want it?" Tang Yun didn't insist after seeing Tiandi take the money. She didn't really stop him. She knew that there was no point in stopping him. The money was in her mother's hands, and she wouldn't be able to get it back. Mrs. Tang beamed as she took the bag. She sat down on the sofa and started counting the contents. Tang Yun was speechless. Tiandi was already like this, he wouldn't dare give less, but she was still counting money in front of him as if she'd never seen money before. Wasn't this embarrassing? Tang Yun stomped her feet in anger, but she couldn't say anything. But Tiandi saw Tang Yun's expression. He didn't think much of Mrs. Tang counting money. He knew Tang Yun's family background very well. They were a poor family in the slums, so it was normal for Mrs. Tang to be greedy. Tang Yun stomping her feet didn't seem like a big deal to Tiandi. Tang Yun was in a relationship with Lin Yi now, and she had plenty of money. She probably didn't care about the money. Why is there an extra 50,000? Mrs. Tang counted the money in the bag. She was surprised to find that there was an extra 50,000 in the bag. "Auntie, this 150,000 has been with me for so long, of course I have to pay interest. This 50,000 will be the interest," Tiandi said quickly. He was hoping that Lin Yi's mother-in-law would put in a good word for him, and Tiandi knew Mrs. Tang's weakness very well, she was greedy. The extra 50,000 was for Mrs. Tang's good graces. Tiandi believed that Mrs. Tang wouldn't blame him anymore. She'd even praise him. As expected, Mrs. Tang's smile grew wider after hearing Tiandi's words. "Good, not bad. You're pretty good." Mrs. Tang happily put the money back into the bag and turned to Tang Yun. Let's go then. We won't disturb Mr. Zhou's rest anymore." "Wait, Mr. Zhou, please write me an IOU. Make it clear that you won't cause trouble for my brother and Dan anymore." Tang Yun remembered this important thing, she needed an IOU. What if Tiandi went back on his word? Chapter 485. The grievances. It didn't matter what Tang Yun's motives were, Zhou Tiandi would try his best to satisfy her if she asked for it. He didn't have any other thoughts, he just thought that Tang Yun was very careful. If it was Lin Yi, he wouldn't be this polite. Lin Yi wouldn't ask him for anything, he'd beat him up until he couldn't write anything anymore. Not only did Zhou Tiandi write it down, stating that he would never cause trouble for Wei and Dan ever again, but he also returned the contract he signed with Dan to Dan. This meant that Dan would have nothing to do with him from now on. Tang Yun let out a sigh of relief after getting the contract. She didn't want to stay in Zhou Tiandi's house any longer. She nodded and turned to her mother. "Let's go then." "Wait." Tiandi called out to Tang Yun's family. Tang Yun's heart skipped a beat. Did Zhou Tiandi see something? Did he know that she was acting tough? "Mr. Zhou? Are you going back on your word?" Tang Yun turned around, trying to sound calm. Mrs. Tang, Wei, and Dan, on the other hand, paled in fright. They didn't turn around, and Zhou Tiandi didn't see it either. No, Sis Tang, you've misunderstood. Tiandi jumped and quickly explained. What I mean is, I'll send a car to send you back. It's late, and you guys have money on you. It's not safe. It wasn't Tiandi's fault, he had no choice but to do so. Tang Yun's family had so much money on them, and with the 200,000 from before, they had 700,000 in total. It wasn't safe to go out at night. If something happened and they got robbed, and Lin Yi thought he was the one who sent the robbers, they'd be screwed. So, in order to prove his innocence, Zhou Tiandi had to send a car to escort them home himself. He was relieved when they got home. I see. That's fine. Mrs. Tang agreed. It wasn't safe to bring so much money this late at night. Tiandi quickly called the driver after Mrs. Tang agreed, telling him to drive the company's car back. He then put on his jacket and prepared to send the family home. Mr. Zhou, you should rest. There's no need for you. Tang Yin didn't want Tiandi to follow her. It'd be bad if he noticed something. What if Lin Yi sees you and gets angry again? Quack. Tiandi jumped in fright at Tang Yun's words. She was right. If Lin Yi couldn't see him, he could let it go after a few days, but what if Lin Yi saw him and beat him up? Tiandi said gratefully. Thank you, Sister Tang. I was a little unwise. Since that's the case, I won't send you off. It's not that I'm lacking in etiquette, but I really don't dare to. Mrs. Tang, Wei, and Dan breathed a sigh of relief, but Mrs. Tang turned around and said haughtily, there's no need for that. I'll talk to my son-in-law later. I won't scare you anymore. Sigh. Thank you, Auntie. Tiandi was overjoyed. He was waiting for Mrs. Tang to say that. Tiandi's driver came quickly. He told the driver that he had to respect Tang Yin's family even more than he respected himself before letting the driver drive off. Tiandi's driver was very responsible. He'd rather walk on the dirt road and scratch the undercarriage of the car. He only left after sending the family home. Everyone let out a sigh of relief when they got home. The show was quite successful, and the happiest person was Mrs. Tang. Not only did she not have to pay, but she also got 200,000. It was a blessing from the heavens. Mom, how could you say that? I don't have anything to do with Lin Yi anymore, and you're still calling him your son-in-law? Aren't you trying to embarrass me? Tang Yin felt a little embarrassed when she got home. She didn't want to use Lin Yi's name. He didn't want her anymore, and she was using his name. Wasn't that shameless? Tang Yun was too ashamed to show her face. That's nothing. Mrs. Tang didn't think much of it. That boss Zhou doesn't know anyways. Right, daughter, is there still a chance between you and Lin Yi? Why doesn't he want you anymore? Tang Yun was a little embarrassed. She didn't want to talk about Lin Yi, especially when Wei and Dan were here. It was even harder to talk about Lin Yi. Wei, Dan, it's getting late. You two should go home and stop contacting Boss Zhou. Mrs. Tang saw through Tang Yin's thoughts and turned to Wei and Dan. Wei was curious as to why Lin Yi and Tang Yin broke up. He wanted them to get back together, so he wanted to stay and listen. But his sister seemed to have something she couldn't talk about. He couldn't stay any longer. He stood up and pulled Dan. Auntie, we'll go back first. Be careful on the road. Give me a call when you get home. Mrs. Tang sent Wei and Dan off and went back into the house. She held her daughter's hand. Yin, tell me, why did you guys break up? I saw that Lin Yi treated you pretty well, didn't he? I didn't see anything wrong this morning. How did he break up? Mom. He had a girlfriend before. His girlfriend transferred to our school, and she's sitting at the same table as him. Tang Yin found it hard to say it out loud, but her mother pressed on. She gritted her teeth and blushed. Mom. You said he had a girlfriend before. Why'd he try to mess with me then? Mother and daughter were connected. Tang Yin let go of her strong front in front of her mother and started crying in her mother's arms. Yin, don't cry. Mrs. Tang sighed. It wasn't like what she guessed. It wasn't that Lin Yi didn't like her daughter anymore, but that the main character came and forced Lin Yi to break up with her. Mom, why is he so bad? Why would he bother me when he has a girlfriend? I'm so embarrassed. How am I supposed to raise my head in the future? Tang Yin felt more and more wronged as she spoke. Yin, Mrs. Tang sighed. It's all Mom's fault, it's all because we're poor. If we were rich, Lin Yi wouldn't have broken up with you. His girlfriend must be from a rich family, right? His family must have gotten her for him, right? Yeah. He drives a sports car to school. Tang Yin nodded. She wasn't lying. That's what I said. Otherwise, why would Lin Yi break up with you? Mrs. Tang said as she stroked her daughter's hair. Did his girlfriend come looking for you? Chapter 486. Xiao Xiao and daughter HM? Mrs. Tang's eyes lit up at her daughter's words. Yin, you're saying that Lin Yi's girlfriend doesn't mind you being a mistress? Tang Yin blinked, but understood what her mother was getting at. She frowned. Mom, you're not thinking of making me a mistress, are you? If that's the case, then don't even mention it. I wouldn't do something so embarrassing. Mrs. Tang didn't say anything else after seeing her daughter's determination. She patted her daughter's shoulder. All right, don't cry, Yin. Who knows, maybe Lin Yi will change his mind one day. Who cares about him changing his mind? I don't want to talk to him anymore. Tang Yun stomped her feet. I'm going to study. I was too stupid to trust him before. I won't do it again. With that, Tang Yun ran into her room and told her mother everything. She felt much better now, not as depressed and wronged as before. Mrs. Tang shook her head regretfully as she looked at her daughter's back. She sighed to herself. Yin, you still don't know how hard life is. You'll know how painful it is when you're as old as I am. She thought back to her classmates, many of whom weren't as pretty as she was when they were young, but they were rich now. They took good care of themselves, and she, on the other hand, was the prettiest girl in school when she was young. It was rare to have a man that her daughter liked, and he liked her as well. It wouldn't be embarrassing to be a mistress. When he attended a class reunion, there was a divorced woman who became the mistress of a big boss and kept bragging about it to everyone. Not only did no one despise her, but they were also very envious of her. Before leaving, they did not forget to ride in her BMW to satisfy their cravings. Laugh at the poor, but not at the prostitutes. It wasn't a nice saying, but it indirectly reflected the helplessness of reality. Xiao Xiao took her blood numbly, and was sent to do a CT scan and all sorts of tests. It was the same every time, and the results were always the same. Xiao Xiao yawned as she laid on the hospital bed, bored. Tianlong walked in, looking at his daughter with concern. Xiao Xiao, what do you want to eat tonight? Daddy's bringing you? I'll take a leave of absence these 2 days to accompany you. No need, you go do what you need to do. Xiao Xiao shook her head, her eyes empty as she looked at the cars outside. Are the results out yet? When can I go back? Xiao Xiao only asked if the results were out, and when she could go back. It was obvious that she didn't have any hope for a cure. She just wanted to go back after the checkup. Otherwise, if he could be treated, he would definitely stay in the hospital. Not yet, but Dr. Zheng is an expert in hereditary diseases. He should have a way. Tianlong comforted. You don't have to comfort me. Even the legendary Dr. Lin Dongfang couldn't do anything about my mother's illness. How could anyone else? Xiao Xiao curled her lips. she'd basically lost all hope. She just wanted to do something spontaneous in the last stages of her life. That way, she wouldn't have any regrets. Miracle Dr. Lin also said that it wasn't that he couldn't save her, but he lacked some conditions. Tianlong said helplessly. Miracle Dr. Lin said that if he had 5 years, he might be able to find a solution, but your mother can't wait 5 years. Isn't that just an excuse for being useless? Xiao Xiao humphed. Who knows if he can cure her? Maybe he's afraid of ruining his own reputation. No, Miracle Dr. Lin has been researching the special ingredients in your mother's blood. But after that last meeting, he went into seclusion. Tianlong said helplessly. He can't cure her, so he went into seclusion. Xiao Xiao didn't think much of it. All those miracle doctors are like that, and that bullshit Dr. Kong, what else can he do other than make medicine? Everyone calls him a miracle doctor. What a joke. You were young back then, so you didn't understand Miracle Dr. Lin. He's a stubborn person. For your mother, he risked his life and went to Miaojiang to research poison. Tianlong didn't have the heart to scold his daughter, but he still lectured her. You can't disrespect him. Fine, fine. Xiao Xiao waved her hand. If he's so stubborn, why did he go into seclusion? Your mother's illness isn't that easy to research, is it? Tianlong smiled bitterly. I've been trying to contact him recently, but I haven't been able to. Captain Yang, who brought me on a mission back then, was close to Miracle Dr. Lin, but he went into seclusion as well, so you know it's not easy to research. Then why did you bring me here? Xiao Xiao frowned. The results are still a few days away. I'll take you around Yanjing these 2 days, it'll be a good time to relax. Tianlong didn't answer his daughter's question directly. He knew that Dr. Zheng wouldn't be able to do anything with the results, but having hope was better than having no hope at all. Oh. Xiao Xiao replied faintly. She didn't say that she was going, but she didn't say that she wasn't interested either. Someone gave Dad an invitation to an auction. Do you want to go? Tianlong suddenly remembered that House Yu's auction was in a few days, and he received an invitation as well. The organization that Feng Tianlong belonged to was called the Secret Investigation Bureau. It was a very special secret agent organization that had a close relationship with the host of the auction, House Yu. House Yu would always send a lot of tickets to the Secret Investigation Bureau, but most of them didn't have the time to attend the auction. The invitation was just a courtesy. Auction? Let's go then. Xiao Xiao had never been to an auction before, but now that her father mentioned it, she wanted to go. It'd be such a waste if she didn't get to go to an auction before she died. But if there's anything you like, I don't have the money to buy it. Tianlong smiled regretfully. Dad's salary is high, but I can't afford to auction items that are worth millions. Ha. Xiao Xiao finally smiled. She wanted this feeling of novelty, the feeling of her father bringing her to play. It didn't matter if she bought it or not. Xiao Xiao had heard her father say that he was going to walk around with her a lot of times, and it was always because he had a mission, so he'd skipped a few times. But this time, her father said that he was going to an auction, and he'd even brought out an invitation. No skipping. Tianlong was happy to see the smile on Xiao Xiao's face. I won't, there's 3 rounds. I can at least watch one with you. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.